Hello everyone, and welcome back to Fleet's Random Ramblings. This time it's Ramblings 88. Yes, 88. Call me a long-barreled flak gun because I'm going places. Yes indeed. Ramblings 88. Hopefully, now working. Had a bit of a false start a couple of seconds ago. But, nope, I think we are now absolutely golden. Right. So, let's actually get the get up and go going, shall we? And then we can get started. As I am wont to do. As we, like to do. So, Ramblings on a Monday. What else is new? And here I am. And here I am. And there we go. And then we need to get him up here. Then we need to do this because it doesn't quite work otherwise. But that's not a problem. Copy that.
Can I ask a quick question before we begin too much? Have you checked your WhatsApp?
Let me just have a look.
Because I'm booking up your 2027.
Of course. Of course you are.
You haven't got anything booked then yet, right?
Specifically May 2027. Not sure which weekend, but one of the bank holidays weekends in May in 2027. And you'll quite like it because, in a nice way, I have nominated. We can't give too many deals about this because we can't announce a deal yet. But you're gonna get basically what we're gonna do is for each channel, they're gonna one of the conference rooms is going to be that channel, and all the panels that come out from that room are going to be on that channel. So if you want to see conference room 1, they go to one channel. Conference room. You've got conference room 4.
Oh my.
That's your channel.
Oh, good lord.
Who knows what esoteric debates you could get going on, my friend?
And this is so we've got this is 2 years away. Good lord. Good God. Like I don't have a blood
well, if you really want
yours.
to, it's actually close to a year and a half.
Shush! Don't remind me.
I'm so glad Clark's only picking on you.
Oh yeah, no, you.
Don't worry.
You two think you're
no. You two have been volunteered because we're going to need a lot of people assisting at this conference. So you two are already on the volunteer list.
You don't get a choice.
Also, you like to do it, Foxo might not be able to.
You've been voluntold.
Don't worry.
But she's very good at hiding, Fleet.
Foxo's being recruited to the Friendly Sea Mines organization party.
Oh God. Foxo and Mrs. Drac. Good lord. That's
Actually, if you want to get really scared, it'll be Foxo, Mrs. Drac, Mrs. Clark, and Dr. Clark, as in my sister.
That's a horrifying combination. Those 4 women combined are the largest concentration of female firepower in human history. Since all of them know how to shoot.
There was that female-only T-34 crew.
Yeah.
And the Night Witches.
But
to be fair,
it would be interesting.
My mum is qualified to drive both a T-34 and a Challenger tank.
Yeah, it's going to be like warfare throughout the ages.
Yeah, pretty much. Goobs333, welcome. You actually get to watch one of these live for once. Kind of excited. Well, I'm glad you're excited. Welcome. Let me just make sure.
Welcome to suffering. Welcome to pain.
That's the person currently playing War Thunder.
Where's StreamerBot? Where are you? Why can't I find you?
Which admit they might join you.
Where can
IDF have all-female tank crews. That doesn't surprise me as much, actually.
Why can't I find you? Why do you... Okay, trying to find StreamerBot. For some reason, I can't find it. Let's have a look. Keep talking.
I mean, British Army also has female tank
actually,
crews.
While I'm looking for
Panzer,
can we get clear comments second? While I'm looking for that, since Dr. Clark knows more about it, Dr. Clark, do you want to very quickly announce what we're announcing today, in regards to Japan quickly, while I just do a bit of digging? So please,
Well, we have a list of where we're going in Japan, and this is the week where we're starting to kick off. The website hasn't gone up yet, so we're not starting fundraising technically yet, but that's going to be going up. We can't give exact dates on when we're going to be in places. You can probably guess what groups they're going to be from the places themselves. But the thing is, some of the museums are actually trying to work it out because they're worried after talking to Australian museums, they might get overloaded if they have it on us on regular days. So they're actually talking about on their closed days and trying to make sure we go in on their closed days and having it special like that. So we're hoping to do, and so I always have to preface this as saying at the moment, it's hoping to, and because the museums are very cautious about advertising something which is being fundraised for a trip, because they are not certain it's going to happen, and they don't want to promise things which don't happen. So it's very much this is the plan list. It's going to include things like the NYK Maritime Museum, including the Hikawa Maru and in Yokohama, the Japanese Coast Guard Museum, the Train and Bus Museum, and the Tokyo University of Marine Science and Technology, where we're hoping to get to see the Meiji Maru and the Sons. The Meiji Maru was, of course, built by Robert Napier. The Yokohama Port Museum and Nippon Maru, where we're looking at details of the Black Ship and various other things. The Togo Haichiro's Shrine. The Museum of Maritime Science in Shinagawa. The Mikasa, of course. The Sarashima Fortress and Island. We're also hoping to have maybe a barbecue there, because it's a very popular barbecue site. And basically do a whole meetup for people if they want to come meet us there. That has been suggested as being a very sensible thing to do in that particular area, as there might be a fair number of people from... Well, there's a small organization based near there called the US 7th Fleet. You might have heard of them. And there seems to be quite a lot of you fans of Drakenfell in them. So, yeah, we might be doing a small get-together there. And then we're hoping to go to the Innoji Temple, which is where Mitsumasa Yonai and other interesting people are buried, and the Kobe Maritime Museum. Kyo Naval Museum, of course. We're going to spend a couple of days there. We're also spending a couple of days with Mikasa, to be fair. The Saibo Maritime Self-Defense Force Museum, and possibly the Kaiomaru. The Kaiomaru trip will be us traveling from Saibo to Inashi the whole way up the length of Japan. And that will allow us to do a lot of dashing visits to various places on the way, but it will be in total a 21-hour journey by train.
Have you confirmed whether or not that's 3'6" or Shinkansen yet?
No, I have just been told by their train service it's 21 hours and it's comfortable. That is, if you want to go and look up the line route from Saibo to Inashi, you can do, and you can tell me whether it's which it is. But I'm leaving it to the people, the free moment people who are actually focused on the width of the trains to sort that out mode, because I only have so much brain space to devote to this. And I am dealing with the fact that some of these museums, I do love them, they are wonderful, but they do not have email that you contact them through. You have to send everything by post, and in some cases, I am literally communicating with friends who are literally communicating in the museum, then communicating back to me, and then it's going backwards and forwards, and it's like a load of Chinese whispers. And so I will leave worrying about the train gauges and the size of the trains to you. All I know is it's possible, and it's a 21-hour journey. And it's perfectly flexible, and people do it. I've got 2 friends who've done the journey.
I was more just, never mind. Fleet's okay. Fleet's got it. Fleet knows where he is for the most part.
That wasn't meant to be telling you off anyway. It was just a case of, no, I just don't have the brain space to look that up right now.
No, it was more just...
I kid you not. One museum, I'm not going to name which one. I'm not going to be... This is not meant to be rude, but they would like to do a formal communications, and so I communicate with my friend, but I also have to send them a written letter, which they then submit to the museum. So I have to post it to Japan. The museum then posts a letter back to them, despite the fact that this person only lives 10 minutes walk away from the museum. They then scan the message and send it to me. I then compose a reply, and that is how we've been slowly built up a relationship over the last year and a half.
Right.
So, My brain is going to be kaput. By the time we get out there, if everything works as it's supposed to, I will be the happiest man alive. If everything goes to pot, then I will sort it out as we go.
Mm-hmm.
But they are lovely people. They are very polite, very, very polite, and very, very friendly. And I have to admit, one of the it was funny from my side of the conversation, but I didn't laugh, of course, because I'm not rude. But talking with a museum and someone from the media team, I think, of the museum got introduced. They were very nice, very friendly, but they called me Mr. Clark. The curator was on the email chain. I'm, of course, Dr. Clark. That's my title. I didn't take any notice of it. Didn't worry about me. I just went, oh, that's fine. I just missed it. Okay, I'll chat away. But I think by accident got CC'd in on the email from the curator back to this person, basically telling them off.
Oh dear.
And I was going, I don't care. I have a title. I only pull it out when I need to. Realistically.
Right. So if I've done everything right there, let's just check. Thank you all.
I suppose it's a respect thing then.
Okay.
Yes,
okay,
it
so
is a respect thing.
So that is working. And of course, the advantage of accidentally losing StreamerBot access is that I have been able to roll back to the previous non-bugged version from the bugged version.
Is StreamerBot not working for you?
No.
Well?
For some reason, it ceased to exist. I looked everywhere on my hard drive for it. It's what I spent the last 10 minutes doing. So I've just had to reinstall it. But it does mean that I have been able to roll back to the previous version that was not bugged behind the current update. So that's good. So it means that it will now automatically just shove questions into Discord.
StreamBot's update does seem to have seriously mucked it up.
Yeah, so I've rolled back from 0.16 to 0.1423. So beautiful, fantastic. Which is good. Although actually I might have missed something there, I think. Anyway, so tell you what, while we're just let's do something that doesn't need StreamerBot, so let's answer Timu's question first, as we do. Patreon questions come first. So we've got Timu's and Brandon's. So I'll do Brandon's first because that's something that Foxo Dragon and Dr. Clark can chew on while I'm still fiddling. What if the Eastern and Western Roman empires never fell and were still around in the 20th century? Chew on that one while I'm fiddling.
Well, what do you mean by Eastern and West Roman empires? Which ones?
How big were they? How big were they?
Yeah.
Basically, are you saying Italy stayed unified for its entire history? In which case, it would be very interesting because it would be a very important, powerful centre of thing, which they could have theoretically done, anchored behind the mountains. If they'd invested in a decent navy and they'd kept a strong enough army up north and they'd not gone quite so the mercenary route, they could have done it. Because let's be honest, the mountains are a pretty sufficient barrier.
And
if you have strong enough forces, you can do it.
And if that Western Roman state exists, I'm sorry, I know I am fiddling, but I just couldn't help chipping in for a second. It's highly likely that Roman state would have probably also have held on to
It's
Carthage.
doomed. No, it's doomed. Because I'm going to assume it said the Western Roman Empire, and the Western Roman Empire is more than just Italy. If we're going off the initial division, it only controls half of Italy, the northern part of Italy. It doesn't control southern Italy.
Well, it would have to get control of southern Italy. That would be the only way it could survive.
It's more of a part of the reason the East gets spun off into a different empire is because of debt. And the Western Roman Empire keeps the title, inherits the debt of the previous Roman Empire. The Eastern Roman Empire doesn't. Which effectively doomed it. And unfortunately, it doesn't really have the population to survive.
Right, I think we're all set. So I'm going to try
Uh.
and open questions, and we will see. We'll see if that works. It should do, though, if everything is working.
Because
but
the Visigoths are going to be the Visigoths and break the Western Roman Empire no matter what happens.
They do this on a shockingly regular basis, which seems to be becoming one of my catchphrases now.
Yeah, so
Catchphrases.
looking at it, the Western Roman Empire just can't survive. It can't sustain itself.
Let's see if this works.
And the East also have to have a number of changes as well.
The Eastern Roman Empire, the issue is that the Eastern Roman Empire does survive, and it turns into what we
Hey,
call...
it's working! It's working automatically now.
Technically and anachronistically, what we call the Byzantine empires.
Which is not what they refer to themselves as. Important to bear in mind.
Well, depends on period.
Yeah, there is that.
And it depends on who you ask. But because to some emperors it's Imperium Romanum, other empires it's the Macedons are famous for it. But the issue is
the collapse of Rome is basically... It's not... The collapse of Eastern Rome isn't set in stone, but you have to change a lot, and you have to go back.
It is. Because it's strange, because Europe especially Eastern Europe with the arrival of the Bulgars and the Slavs, goes through a period of deurbanization and a large, massive increase in rural populations. This makes the Roman system, the Roman provincial system, ineffective. Which then massively reduces the strength of the empire itself, because it's unable to govern itself properly. And stuff like the Byzantine legal code, there's a reason we call it Byzantine politics, even today.
Yeah.
Byzantine bureaucracy is another phrase.
Yeah, and it's, especially by the time of the Fourth Crusade, the actual institution that is the empire is rotten to the core. Which is why Constantinople gets sacked. Because money and boats are promised to the Crusaders that they can't give, but they're running off the legacy of being able to give it.
Yeah.
And after that, even with the reunification, the compressive issue is the rise of Islam and the Turkic migrations. And the Romans can't do anything to stop that. Because are you aware of how the Caliphate's got started, Fleet?
Not particularly, but I suppose we can dip into it a little bit as like a nice way to wrap up this question, and you'd sort of hammer home why Rome is just,
It's essentially what ends up happening is the Romans, and I think it's the it's not the I think it might be the Safavids, or forget the dynasty, but essentially the Persians get stuck in a 2-century long mass war which leads to essentially them draining their manpower reserves. The Roman army shrinks, the Roman Empire shrinks, and the constant warfare in Anatolia creates the perfect environment for plague.
Yeah.
Which then proceeds to ravage both of them. While at the same time, some guy has united the Arabian Berber tribes and essentially turns it into a three-way. But the way Muhammad's caliphate and later the Rashidun caliphate does warfare is very different to the way the Romans do warfare. And this is before stuff like the establishment of the theme system, local, essentially local martial lords. So only the emperor can form legions, and the legions have to be formed in Constantinople.
Mm.
And the emperor there's no autonomy there. And fundamentally, you can't change this effect because the Romans getting reality checked is what leads to the establishment of the theme system. But it also ends up with the loss of the Levant and the loss of Egypt and Islam spreading throughout North Africa.
And at that point, you can only delay the inevitable. You can't.
Yeah.
Like
because
basically, the only way to save the continuous state that is Byzantium is for it to basically accept that it's no longer Rome and basically reorganize and gut itself, which it was never going to do.
It's not even that. The issue is nothing's going to stop the Bulgarians being driven west. They're driven west by the Mongols and the conditions on the steppe. And that's going to be the same for the Hungarians. That's going to be the same for the Romanians.
Yep.
So, but the weakened Eastern Roman Empire can't integrate these people. They have their own ideas. They're a lot of the time, but they're not Christian at this point. So the Roman Empire is losing the Balkans. They're losing Greece because the Normans are being Normans.
That sounds like the Normans.
And Dara Islam, also known as the Caliphates, is trying to take over Anatolia.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Caliphates are trying to invade Europe. Because you've got stuff like is it the Azebids trying invasion of Sicily and trying to invade into southern Italy. You have the conquests of Hispania, the attempts at conquest in Anatolia. Yeah,
it's just, yeah.
You know what I tend to do when I'm running the it's going to sound strange, when I'm running Rome Total War and I am in the later one and I am barbarian invasion and trying to do the Eastern Roman Empire and actually make it survive, I tend to abandon everything but Italy, condense down on Italy, sell everything everywhere else, literally scorched earth, and then rebuild everything from Italy outwards.
Yeah, but it's like because
you can't do that historically because they won't let you do that historically. But it's the easiest way, and it's also the easiest way for me to cut down on the rebellions because it's a case of, oh yes, you rebelled, oh good, you have nothing left because I already sold everything in your place. You're going to get bushwhacked by me later.
Because the issue is that historically the Lombards migrate into Italy. And that's where we see the foundation of modern Italy. Their centre of power, their population base is Greeks and Anatolia, which is in a really bad position.
Yeah. So, that was a good little dive into history. So, next question is the next Patreon question, which is from Timu. What is Fleet of Ocean's favourite surface ship of the Cold War era and why? Honestly, if you want my favourite ship of the surface ship of the Cold War era, hey, that is a tough one. That is a tough one.
That's easy for me.
Probably torn.
I have no idea what happened then.
Surface ship.
Sorry, I suddenly disappeared off things, and I have no idea why.
I'm torn between a Des Moines and a Kiev-class aircraft carrier.
For what?
My favourite ship of the Cold War era. It's either a Des Moines or a Kiev. I like the Des Moines because they are the epitome of the gun cruiser, and their utility shows in how long they last, given when they were built. And I love the Kiev because it's a distinctly Soviet naval way of getting around certain members of the Politburo and staff not being keen on the idea of aircraft carriers. And to be fair, they come out as not completely.
It's not an aircraft carrier.
It is an aircraft carrier.
No, it's not. It's a heavy aviation cruiser.
Yes, yes, it's a heavy aviation cruiser by definition, but it is an aircraft carrier with a heavy punch.
It's a heavy aviation cruiser.
Yes, Dr. Clark, but look, the Montreux Convention isn't within earshot. They can't hear you, nor are the members of the Politburo. So we can call it what it is.
Look, in a nice way, HMS Unicorn is a forward aviation support ship,
Yes.
and they're heavy aviation cruisers, and the Invincible class are through deck cruisers. Where are you saying these people are lying? Are you accusing naval officers of lying about what they're building?
Yes, absolutely.
They
They
are
do it all the
honourable.
time.
They are honourable men and women. They would never lie.
Oh, come on.
Jeff
You and I
Fleet,
both know that.
The next thing I'm gonna say is that the Japanese aviation destroyers aren't aviation destroyers.
Yes.
Well, okay. That's a slightly different. That's a slightly different thing.
Oh, it's
Now
different
now
isn't
he's
it?
worried. Oh, now he's worried.
That's more down to what was it? I had this explained to me in my cyclic in Akazuki a while ago. It's down to designation and role they see them operating in, rather than any sort of a get around or lie. It's a different reason as for why they're named that way. It's not the same thing. Yes, they are aircraft carriers as well, but the reason why they're called a certain thing is different to the other examples that we've listed.
Basically, because you like them, it's a different thing.
No, not at all. I just said why it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that applies to all the other ones you said that aren't a different thing.
Well,
Because Japan's not allowed to have aircraft carriers, especially under the 1946 peace treaty and it's Article 8 of the Constitution. It's Article 8. I used to know this.
apparently, well, it's... Look, I feel like we're getting into the weeds here.
Do you feel like you're getting the weeds, or do you think you might be losing?
No, I feel like we're getting into the weeds here, and we are... Well, we do have to get on.
Wait, you're offering free weed? Gimme, 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 gimme,
No.
gamma, 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 gooby,
No.
gooby, 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 gam, boom, boom, boom.
Sorry, stop it. Where are we? So I think we have to start working through le normal questions. And yes, I am aware of what's gone on this weekend, but try not to bombard us with questions, because there's very little beyond things were dropped out of aircraft and things hit the ground and things exploded. So, yeah.
All we know is that it's another 1 quintillion to the defense budget.
Yeah. So...
That much, but yeah, it's good times.
So we'll start
Bill.
with Discord, then move to YouTube, and then bang, 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 back and forward. It's nice and easy. It's all on one server now. Brackman asks, what are the reasons for missiles like the R66M, AM120, and R77 and Meteor to have a cone in the front? Is it just for aerodynamic reasons, or do sensors in the missiles play a role? It's both. That's where your sensors are located, and it kind of has to have a cone, because you can't cut through the air with any other aerodynamic shape at that speed. Well, very few other aerodynamic shapes.
Fleeticus. What shape is the nose of the space shuttle?
Boxo. Is it?
Yes.
Is it rounded?
Yes.
Okay then. It's not a flat front.
Yes.
That was the point I was driving at. Not that you can't have
but
another
a
shape.
cone comes to a point. You are English. You will speak your language correctly.
Sure.
It is apparent I'm not allowed to speak Irish on your servers.
What? Who said that?
I'm being passive aggressive at Ronan, and I just realised she's not here, so no.
Yeah.
Can't be passive aggressive at someone when they're not here.
Can be. It's just they don't have to take any notice of you.
But yeah, that's basically that was a fairly simple question to answer. So next question is the first YouTube question. Paul Amos asks, what one thing would you change in 1946 to improve the position of the RN going forwards? You basically have to lay the groundwork for the big reset, aka the transition from late gun to missile and gun. And you basically have to set up the RN to have classes of ships that, like, if you, in 1946, so you basically have to start design studies that will lead to mature missile-armed vessels, or vessels that can be very easily retrofitted to take missiles. That
To
you
be fair, you
will
could go
exist.
you could go to slightly bigger bearings. You need to complete the Maltas.
Yeah.
You can't dilly-dally around with the various other options. You have to have the Maltas. But that's pretty much the options.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, completing the Maltas does actually come under, in my opinion, the big reset. You need that size of carrier in order to survive the transition to heavy jet aircraft and all-weather day-night flight capability. So, so that to me comes under that big reset. But I'd like, for example, I design the Tigers as an all-forward ship, so I'd have the 2 6-inch forward, and then I'd have them built with the option for a 6-inch aft, but I'd leave the space open to put systems yet to reveal themselves, currently under development, most top secret. Hint, slap a sea slug in there. We'll slap a sea slug in there at very little cost when it comes around.
That is your option.
Which means I can pivot the counties into, so when the county class destroyers come along, I can have those be proper. Like, we'll probably... the British didn't have a direct equivalent to... because we didn't get... Oh, what was the... remind me again, Dr. Clark. I know the missile, I can see the designation, but I can't remember the name. Type 42s are armed with it.
Sea Dart.
Yeah, Sea Dart. And then we
I was thinking of going,
and then we have Sea
really?
Slug. Yeah, and then we have Sea. Yeah, I was getting the missiles mixed up. Because
I know it happens.
Because we don't have a. The UK doesn't have a Terrier equivalent that can go on a single arm launcher. Nothing in that bracket. We have Sea Dart, we have Sea Slug, but we don't develop anything during the Cold War. Sea Viper's not really.
Sea Viper's the new one.
Yeah. Asta 30. Let me have a look. Is Asta 30 equivalent to a No, that's 13. That's 15. Oh yeah, no, they're again they're newer. I mean, I suppose I could buy. I suppose I could put contracts out for something because the development contracts for what becomes Terrier, which then obviously evolves into Standard Missile later down the line. Those are put out in the 40s. So I suppose I could put forwards to develop a UK missile in that bracket. So we'll have Sea Dart and we'll have Sea Slug and Sea Dart, which are obviously our long range standoff missile equivalent. But ideally, I'd want that sort of smaller, not quite point defense weapon, but something in that bracket between. Actually, probably something that follows Sea Slug before Sea Dart's around, and then phase out Sea Slug and replace it with that, and try and keep that mature development going forwards, and maybe have Sea Dart coming in as maybe a different missile. But that would be, again, I'd have to lay the contracts and this groundwork in 46. Basically, sort of place down long lead development contracts. That's how you do it in 46.
Yeah.
So, next question. Admiral Wellesley, take a look at this short essay and please review it. Let's see. He sent me this. Let's have a look. Okay. Let's have a look. See what it says. If it'll let me open it. I don't have Acrobat Reader. I cannot open this. Could someone else who has Adobe Acrobat Reader please open this? I can't read it. I can't read it. Okay, hang on, never mind. I think it's just about. Okay. I do feel like this is something you could have probably given. That's a 2-page essay that's going to take me a little bit of time to read. Wellesley, would you accept feedback on this at a later date? And
there's something really fun. Is there something really fun in the text file?
No, it's more just it's a proper full-on 2-page essay with full citations and sources.
Where is it?
It's in Rambling's text. I'll here. And also it's probably and it's also probably something you don't want me to review. If you want actual advice on it, you probably want an actual academic to look at it. AKA, we have one. We have an academic here.
What are you doing it for?
Yeah, it's also also we lack. There's a bit of context. We need a bit of context here.
The first line is, let's examine Yamamoto's doomsday scenario.
Yeah.
I feel like it's like halfway through an essay and like I'm missing the starting context.
I'm missing the title and I'm missing the reasoning for. I also have to say I'm guessing, just guessing, from the structure and from the referencing technique that this is not a British history student doing it. It's either an American history student or a social sciences, political sciences student. That I can mark both. Don't worry. So the moment I go look in the referencing, I go, there's in-text citations. That's rare for the UK history system. We usually prefer stick it in a footnote, stick it in endnotes.
He's a Canadian at the moment. I think he's born in Hong Kong. He studied in Hong Kong, so
I know that's North American system. So yeah.
Right. So next question is 1981. If the Japanese somehow joined the British Empire, whose prefix would they use? HMS or a special one like the Dominions? You'd basically have to have Japan folded in prior to the Meiji Restoration to have that happen. And that would basically mean they would be a colonial state rising through Dominion status. So
it's simple.
Yeah.
Are they an annexed and integrated part of the British Isles?
They would.
If so, they would use HMS. If they're a colony or a dominion or a protectorate, they would use their own version of HMS.
Which would be His Majesty's Japanese ship. So HJMS.
Yeah.
So next on our list, Tankax. Question. Battleships are usually argued as useless for seemingly not doing much in history, spawning arguments that more cruisers, submarines, destroyers, and aircraft would have been superior options pre-1940s. How would you argue the battleship's case in the face of these arguments, preferably in the 1920-1945 time frame? The navies are built around battleships. Honestly, it boils down to that. Without the centerpiece, you have nothing to build your fleet around. And politely, if everyone is building more cruisers, submarines, destroyers, and aircraft, it's only a matter of time for one of the other navies that isn't doing that rocks up with their battleships, supported by their own cruisers, submarines, destroyers, and aircraft. And suddenly, you have no battleships.
Battleship will always reinvent itself in that situation, because you will escalate cruiser design until you've redesigned the battleship.
Yeah, the battleship will... The battleship will appear when there is a need for it, and pre-1948, there is a need for it.
It's simple. Battleships are the 20s to 40s version of an ICBM.
It's an imperfect analogy, but it does work.
You gotta have one to ensure the other guy with one doesn't use his and annihilate everything else you have.
Yes, so for analyzing battleships, it's always analyzing how many situations didn't happen because of it.
Can I ask which particular individuals are arguing they're not useful, that you shouldn't have built them, that they are a waste? Because I'd like to really do a special schooling lesson for them.
Yeah.
Oof.
Because you can make the same case about first rates in the Age of Sail. Why build first rates? Well, look at what happens to the Swedish Navy in the Russo-Swedish Wars. Yeah. They don't have any first rates. They get annihilated regularly.
Yep. Knight6831 asks, for Dragon and Foxo, thoughts on the new IB ships announced? They were the 1928 German battlecruiser Admiral Zenker, the Type 1934 AZ-5 class destroyer DDZ-13 Erich Kolner, and the Type 7C submarine KMS U-552.
There was less ships that were completely made up than I was expecting.
But there was more than I was hoping for.
It was always going to be around 4 ships.
And only 2 of them are completely made up.
No, none of them are. Either of them, technically, you've got the 1928 battlecruiser design. That's the only one that's closest to it. The other 3 were historical ships, Foxo.
Yeah.
So,
I'm not talking about the battlecruiser design. I'm just salty about that.
Yeah.
You're just feeling salty. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Funny.
But it's 2 Iron Blood destroyers again, which are going to be completely useless. The submarine, there's already better Iron Blood submarines. It's a case of, not very interesting, to be honest.
Out of the development room and straight into mediocrity to be ignored.
Pretty much.
Sea Dollars asks, why did Halsey believe
the
it was
lightness that she brings to it that really adds to that the analysis?
Yeah. Sea Dollars asks, why did Halsey believe?
What do you mean? I am happy.
Can I?
No.
Sea Dollars asked, why did Halsey believe it was quote, it was imperative that we forestall a possible post-war claim by Britain that she had delivered even a part of the final blow that demolished the Japanese fleet. An exclusively American attack was therefore in American interests, preventing the British Pacific Fleet, unquote, preventing the British Pacific Fleet from participating in the bombing of Kure Naval Base. I don't know.
Because fundamentally he was being a bit of an idiot. And fundamentally, the reason I say this is at the time, they were still looking like there was going to be an invasion of Japan and the British were going to be providing troops for it. So there is absolutely no point to preventing that. Literally, it comes down to some American officers were worried about the British getting involved, that it might give them more luster. The British were the Royal Navy was sort of looking at it going, well, we did against the Rage Marina and the Germans, so frankly, if you want to take the lead against the Japanese, that's fine. Secondly, and this is the more serious point, is that honestly, he's trying to make the case for the Americans to aviation that has the same status as the Royal Navy in terms of strike potential, because currently the most famous harbor, he thought if they did cure, that would be them carrying out their response to Pearl Harbor. And yeah, he's a bit. There's a lot of American officers who have some very interesting views, let's say, but that when you take them in, they make a lot of bluster about their various reasons for not wanting British involvement, and then you look at those actual reasons and you go, that doesn't make logic or sense with what was going on at all around it. So what was your real reason? And the real reason is making the case for the US Navy post-war.
Just a quick reminder, since I'm seeing Ruin on here. Reminder, if you have a question in Ramblings text, please leave a yellow dot next to it so the friendly neighborhood moderator knows that that is a question, and that I know it is a question as well. Mm-hmm. If it has a yellow dot, if it doesn't have a yellow dot next to it or below it, I will not see it as a question and it will be moved past.
Yeah, bonus points if you super react to it, because Fleet will go, ooh, pretty.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if in 1939 all QE and R-class battleships magically get an upgrade to carry 4x2 15-inch 50, able to elebrate to 45 degrees, high-pressure turbine engines, Iowa-class levels of high pressure, not German level, Queen Elizabeth radar plus AA modernizations, and effectively a fresh hull as if they were just launched?
This last night.
Well, sadly I wasn't there, but do you want to kind of repeat your answer?
Basically, you've just given the Royal Navy the ability to inflict Armageddon. If Queen Elizabeths are all that, they're all going to be roughly 28 knot ships, because let's be honest, with those power plants, that much power, they're 28 knots. New hulls as well, especially, they're definitely 28 knots. They've got the 8 top range 15-inch guns, which means also, in a nicest way, you can also, if you've got the 15-inch 50s in that number, you probably can also upgrade Renown, Repulse, and Hood. Hood can go into refit because she's not needed. You've got 10 fast battleships at the core of your Royal Navy battle line. Now your slow battle line are Nelson and Rodney. So the Halifax convoys, when they're getting their escort and their important convoys, are going to be Nelson and Rodney escorting them. Good luck, Scharnhorst and Nizer, if they decide to turn up. They could do stuff to an R-class. It wasn't going to be nice versus Nelson or Rodney. And with 10 fast with the Queen Elizabeth being 10 fast battleships and ours being fast battleships, you've suddenly, and all of them having upgraded air defenses, you suddenly, and upgraded anti-submarine defenses, etc. Royal Oak probably doesn't get sunk by the torpedo hits in the Scarpa flow, and you have maybe 4 sitting in the home fleet, 3 in the Mediterranean, in the Eastern Fleet, 3 at Gibraltar, and that's World War II wrapped up in sort of that scenario. And the King George V's probably still get built, but and get being pushed along. But there's honestly a scenario whereby, do you stop them and build them as triple 15-inch guns, or do you still build them as the 14-inch guns, which would be quicker? But let's be honest, your need for a fast battleship is not quite as speedy as it was. So you might be putting that effort into. You might put the efforts into Vanguard and into modernizing Hood instead, because you then have ships which are faster than 28 knots.
Mm-hmm. I mean, at that point, at that point you could basically hold the line. You may as well at that point, if you have the dockyard space, you might as well drag in Repulse and Hood for upgrades. Renown's already got them.
Yeah.
Like you may as well get all 3 of your battle cruisers up to tip-top shape, because you have. Still at this point 10, you still have 10 28 knot exceptionally very capable capital ships to hold the line while they're in refit. And bear in mind,
they're all brand new as well, so they're not going to need refitting anytime soon.
Yeah, and bear in mind, this is 1939, so Italy's still not in the war. It makes logical sense to drag in 2 capital ships for those rebuilds. And you'll still have Renown if you need something that goes faster than 30 knots to go and poke something.
honestly, if this happened in 1939, there is you could. It's even going to change the pace of once you do start having capital shipbuilding again, what you're focusing on. Then the Navy did focus slightly heavier on the carriers anyway, historically, but they would probably be focusing even more on the carriers in terms of the focus on construction. Because
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but might we not? And I know this is going to sound weird, but given what the QEs and the Rs now are, basically a 10-ship uniform class with 28 knot 15-inch armed ships. Might we not see the later KGVs, and might they be considered for conversions into carriers to get more flight decks into the fleet?
You wouldn't convert a KGV hull into a carrier, but you might just not build it.
Yeah.
Might not just put a resource in it.
I mean...
That's easier than converting a KGV hull, have a look at it, and just think about trying to turn it into a carrier hull.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Do you reckon they could convert Repulse into a carrier?
No, because she's an exceptionally easy and quick way to get a modernized 30 knot, another modernized 30 knot ship. Same thing with Hood.
32 knot. And he said these things are going to be 32 knot ships, so that's useful.
Sorry,
basically,
did the plus not come through? I said 30 plus. The plus must not have been transmitted. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I just heard the 30 knots, so I just went 30.
Sorry. Yeah, no,
knots,
I just wanted to correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So they've got a 4 knot advantage. The thing you probably do see is King George. The reason I would say you probably still do see King George V, Prince of Wales, and Duke of York is literally because of with Japan rising as a threat in the Far East, you're going to want to be able to deploy basically another squadron to the Far East. And there's actually a scenario in that thing where you go, well, hang on. I've got 4 modernized Queen Elizabeth sitting on R's of these super queens, basically sitting in Scapa Flow. I've got 3 of them sitting in Gibraltar. I've got 3 of them sitting in Alexandria. Where do I need extra the King George V's? They are possibly end up getting deployed to the Far East as a set of 3 with a carrier as your Far East deterrent force.
And you better believe there'll be a fast ship with, was it Courageous that was caught by Bismarck, or was it Glorious that was caught? But no,
it's Glorious.
Yeah, so
Courageous is sunk by torpedoes.
Sorry, yeah.
She's out, has some punning.
Yeah, so you better believe that Charlotte and I is now going to come over the horizon and say, "Oh, that's a, oh, we found a carrier." What do you mean there's a battleship we didn't see earlier coming out from one of the fjords?
Well, no, it's more the scenarios. Think about when they are hunting down Renown, and think about all the other battleships which are in the area but couldn't get involved because they can't catch up.
Whereas now
you've got, you've got Warspite capable of doing 28 knots in that area, straining to get to you. And also, it changes how the Royal Navy is using the force, because if they've got all these ships which are able to do 28 knots, then they're going to use them to do 28 knots, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So,
that's basically the trouble.
Right. So, So, the next question, Akazuki asks, what if USS Flying Fish's torpedoes had struck Yamato? Let's have a look. Then, when did she fire? So when was this? When did she fire torpedoes at? Right. Okay. So this was August 42. Launched 4 torpedoes. 2 hits apparently. So assuming that the 2 hits that, well, the problem you've got is that you've got the problems that we might have had. So, she launched 4 torpedoes, and they heard 2 explosions. Now, since Yamato recorded no hits in that period, we can assume that the torpedoes had Mark 14 syndrome and detonated prematurely. The problem is, if all 4 torpedoes hit, all 4 torpedoes have to work, which is no guarantee with the Mark 14s. Especially not in this period, in August 42. But assuming they all work, 4 torpedoes all on the same side. I'm not sure if that's enough to put Yamato down. She's going to be limping, but I don't know if that's enough raw explosive force to put her down by itself, especially if you're not compromised.
Honestly, it's going to slow her down enough. You might get another shot at it, but yeah, you're going to have. If you got, it's going to depend. If let's say if 3 of them manage to hit in roughly the same area.
Oh yeah, that
within
might...
a couple of feet, then it could well do. If it's a spread and they're separated out and down the hull, you get one hitting the bow, one slightly forward of center, one aft of center, one at the stern. You've got a good spread of hit. She's probably lost a propeller shaft. She's probably lost. She's not going to have hull, full hull integrity. She's going to be pierced. She's going to have flooded compartments. But is that going to be enough to cause her to sink? Probably not. Slow her down, yes.
Yeah. I'm just going to very quickly... I'm just testing something. Yep, okay, brilliant. Just want to check that is fine. It is. Right.
In particular, Knight, they were mostly what took down Yamato were airborne torpedoes, which are a fair bit weaker.
And a lot more of them. And also, let's not forget, there was also the fact that she was being pounded by bomb hits as well.
He took a beating.
Ruinon, what are you doing?
But yeah, please give me more Roman Empire questions.
Okay. Ruinon, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Fleet, can you please be a bit more precise than what are you doing?
I'm asking a question. I can't be more precise.
Do you know how
than
little that narrows it down? So is Ruinon breathing? Is Ruinon dying?
The thing
Is Ruinon existing?
Is Ruinon throwing it back in chat?
Yeah, no. Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I prefer you just left. I would prefer you just left things the way they were. Oh, never mind. I see what you're doing there. Okay, that's fine.
Fleet, this is why communication
I wish you'd
matters.
I wish you'd have just left things the way they were, Ruinon, because now everything's a mess. And the bot's going to keep putting questions in. I wish you'd just left it alone. Rather than fiddling with it. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if in 1939 all British battle cruisers and battleships become N3 battleships? And in case some confusion happens, the N3 is
yes.
fresh.
Yeah, we answered this one yesterday.
Right, okay.
Next.
Alright, I do wish you would. I do wish you would ask Fleet. I want to try something. Can I do this before doing it? Next time, please.
Yeah,
run
but you're
it by
asking
me.
an engineer to communicate.
Yes, I am. But in future, before you fiddle with things, especially when it comes to the Q&A log, could you please ask me in future? For now, we'll just keep going with what you've done because we kind of have to. But in future, could you please ask me? Before you do something like that again.
But Fleet, instead of just saying, what are you doing?
Well, the problem is it was already in progress. Dragon, I was just talking...
Yes, but as in general, if you want to try and get stuff to go across easier, ask it a bit more precise. As even Steve said.
Let's discuss this later. Let's answer the questions now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Brackman asks, what regiment of the Imperial Guard would you like to serve in most?
None.
None, thank you.
I like my limbs, thank you.
If you're being forced into one, you don't get a choice in serving the Emperor.
Cadian armored. At least that way I'm not a foot slogger and I'll have a decent training and kit.
I find it amusing that you chose the Cadian there, but okay.
Shitholes.
You want to be in the Imperial Guard's premium anti-demon force?
What?
The Cadians primarily for most of their life dealt with demons and are usually thrown into the worst meat grinders possible because they are the elite.
And even post Fall Acadia, Acadian shock troopers get sent in when they get called up by Inquisitors when we need guardsmen we can trust to not fall to demons immediately.
Hmm.
Now, personally, I would be a Valhallan.
Valhallian. Interesting choice, but I can understand it.
A, they don't do much fighting, and B, they live in the cold.
Eh.
Now, there's actually a couple I would choose between. The Paragonian Super Heavy Regiment, because, yes, we are primarily using Bane Blades and Bane Blade
Ooh.
accessories.
That's not honestly. That's nice.
The other option would be Armageddon Steel Legion, because it's nice and warm, and once again, tank.
Yeah, but you get thrown at chaos a lot.
No, not if you're what's called Armageddon Steel Legion. No, you're dealing with orcs constantly fighting on Armageddon endlessly, because oh god, it's Armageddon 4, which actually is now a canon thing. And a slightly weirder one,
and then Khorne just throws his boys at you regularly.
The weirdest one would be though the what's it called, Praetorian Guard, which is a bunch of guardsmen based off English redcoats and colour scheme, and primarily use, ironically, a combination of super heavy tanks and orc mercenaries? Because that's a thing?
You're missing the best part about them, about how they don't fear death because their homeland is horrible.
Well, yeah, it's almost equivalent to Birmingham, which is a canon planet.
Actually, Dragon, can you do us a favour and just read the description of Birmingham?
The Black Planet,
Okay.
as it's officially known.
Okay, can we
My regiments to catch and devil squads, and frankly, will beat you all. Anyway, carry on.
Okay, YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if Imperial Germany formed in 1819 while Austria, France, Russia, and Britain were exhausted from the Napoleonic Wars? Well, here's the thing. In 1819, no one's exhausted from the Napoleonic Wars. This is the thing. There's a reason why they go on for so long. They just... No one...
Exhausted.
Yeah, no one's really exhausted by them. They just...
Yeah.
It's not like...
They just win them. They don't get exhausted by them.
The only power that really needs to take a breather is France. But that's only because...
And Austria.
Well, even Austria, to be fair, actually.
Austria's trying not to explode.
Well, yes. But if
Hungarians go
brunt of the damage.
Yeah, but if Imperial Germany forms somehow in 1819... I mean, the problem is, it can't be formed by the Prussians. I guess it would have to be crowned from the gutter situation. It'd have to be crowned from the gutter situation, I guess. The
issue is that a Germany that forms in 1819 is a Germany that is forming from the west and not the east. It's going to be a product of the German revolutions.
Yeah. And liberal thinking.
Of liberal thinking, proto-nationalism, and it's going to create two Germanys.
There'll be Prussia in the east and some form of German kingdom with a liberal monarchy with some form of representative parliamentary system in the west. And
it's a good chance you've got the Kingdom of Prussia and you got the Republic of Germany.
That's also a good idea. Probably could work, actually.
The ideals are much, and the German revolutions were Republican. It's like the great irony of the German Empire.
Yeah. I mean, they did offer the crown to the Prussians. Not sure why they did that when they were Republican, but hey-ho.
Probably because they knew that if they didn't, they would have to deal with the Prussians.
Yeah. AAMC Woods asks, what if the American Expeditionary Force from World War I at its height in 1918 was sent back in time to the beginning of the American Civil War? That's going to cause problems because there are going to be sympathies for both sides among the officers and men of that force. Southern nationalism and lost cause revisionism is at its height in this period. So there will be those within the force who will want to fight for the Confederacy. The question is going to be, does more of the force want to fight against the Confederacy or fight for it? And that's going to decide the Civil War.
Oh, it was a Civil War, because I was checking, because I thought it was the War of Independence they were going back to.
No, it was the American Civil War.
It's a Civil War.
And it's the American Expeditionary Force in 1918. And at that point, the antebellum South is still in full effect. Lost cause revisionism is at its height.
And it's most of the American infantry force v World War One is largely recruited from the southern states, especially the poor regions of the southern states, which, as you know, are home to some of their.
Yes. Like I said, it's going to depend on exactly how much of the force. Like I said, and without actually sending them back or making a forced decision arbitrarily as a panel, there's no way to tell how many officers and men would fight for the Union versus how many would fight for the Confederacy. Right.
But there is some that's going to be worse. What year is this infantry formation from?
1918, at its height. So presumably just prior to the armistice, since that was when the expeditionary force was at its height.
You're going to have some much worse than a south-leaning infantry unit. Or two. There's entire infantry divisions of African Americans that are under arms. And you've just sent them back to the Civil War.
Well, yes, but there's also entire divisions of Southern antebellum lost causes under arms as well.
Yep, you've just sent groups like the Harlem Hellfighters back to the Civil War.
And I would say the thing is, whilst you're right to extent, the question I would ask is, where are most of the artillery regiments recruited from?
Yeah.
That's going to have more of an impact.
Like Fort Polk, if I remember correctly.
No.
Yeah.
The artillery officers aren't mostly from the south. Have a look at them.
Well, it depends. It's going to depend on how much control the officers are going to have over their men in that situation, because it's a unique situation. Are they going to?
Who does the fire control the maths?
Well, no, it's not so much. It's not even so much down to whether or not they keep the guns. I mean, even just the injection of trained manpower to the Southern cause could be detrimental in the extreme to. Why
they still can't supply them with ammunition. Yeah, you have great troops. They have no ammunition.
I mean,
it's not beyond industry and firearms at the time to make cased ammunition, especially rimmed ammunition.
And I mean, also
it's not beyond the things, but actually, in the nicest way, it is beyond Southern industry at the time. Because let's be honest, the reason the South lost the war is because they don't have any industry
and men as well.
Or it gets burned down.
I would also point out that when I said manpower, I literally meant just the dudes, not the weapons. Just giving them reserves, the ability to replace losses, especially with the way Lee handles his armies. The man has all the skill of a wet brick. I will do a frontal attack.
I think you overestimate how much manpower there is in the expeditionary force.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah. Chester Nimitz would, but then again, he's someone from the 40s, when the civil rights movement was even beginning to penetrate the South among white Southerners. 1918 is still there are people within the South who would be exceptionally happy if slavery returned, a large proportion of the southern United States would be happy in 1918 if the blacks were put back in chains. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, that doesn't change in the US until... Yeah.
Much later.
What I mean, what I mean, Ruin on, is the fact that there was the fact you could get an outlying opinion like Chester Nimitz's as a Texan in the 40s. You're not gonna get that from anyone in the South in 1918. Anyway, back to the next question. Brackman asks, Albonia needs a new navy after the First World War. What ships will you get for your superiors to subtly sabotage them? Well, because the whole thing with Albonia is that you're supposed to supply stuff that looks good on paper, but is flawed in the extreme. So, I suppose we go through the thing. So,
Can I introduce you to the Admiral class battle cruisers?
well, hold on. So,
There are much better choices.
So, let's start from... So, battleships, battle cruisers, aviation ships. So, aviation. So, that's a vessel that can operate aircraft. Armored cruisers, light armored cruisers, protected cruisers, destroyers, torpedo boats, submarines. Actually, no, let's go with heavy and light cruisers.
This is going for a hell of a lot of stuff that honestly they probably won't need.
Well, no, the whole thing with the Albonia thing is you have to give...
Let's just
Yes, but
simplify
as in,
it.
this is
Battleships, battle cruisers, carriers, heavy cruisers, light cruisers, destroyers,
we're in
submarines.
We're going for battleships, battle cruisers, aviation ships,
post-World
armored
War I.
cruisers, light cruisers, destroyers, submarines. And there's a reason why...
Light and heavy cruisers.
Yeah, that's what I said, yeah.
So for simplicity.
So, for simplicity, what, Foxo? Quickly, before we go...
So functionally, light and heavy cruisers.
That's what I said, yeah. But
No,
they
you
don't-
didn't.
No,
you didn't.
you went and listed like all the types of armored cruisers, light armored
did you not hear
cruisers,
the-
protected
did you-
cruisers.
Did you not hear the revised list? I said literally
This
2
is
minutes
why we
ago.
tried to stop you in the beginning, though, because also no one's going to be buying torpedo boats realistically at this
That's
point.
why I gave the revised... You know, when I actually revise my list and say it again, it'd be nice if you listened.
We
Yeah,
do
but actually
listen.
didn't talk over us. But that won't happen. Anyway, go on.
So, battleships. Useful on paper, flawed in practice.
Standard class?
No.
The Bayern.
Because they
No,
don't have...
Bayerns are actually good.
Because they don't have to be...
They're
don't
good,
have-
but they're not future-proofed.
They don't have to be extant examples of the ships. They can be bought or built new.
I think Bayerns are a good pick.
No.
I said the Bayerns actually do have room for future growth, Foxo.
And they're also...
Yeah, but it's more of it has to look good, but be flawed.
But the problem is, though, the Bayerns
are
aren't
good at the point.
that flawed. They have just
Their power
actually...
plant is.
That can be replaced,
Yeah, and it's not a deep enough flaw to render them... It's not the sort
actually
of deep
a
flaw.
bad ship to have.
You basically want
It's
to...
me.
You basically want to
An
sell...
American battleship.
I'm honestly, I am leaning towards giving them or suggesting they buy Order from Vickers more as their battleship, more versions of the Almirante Torre. Because it looks good
What?
on... Yeah, because...
What?
Because...
Eh?
No, there's a reason for this.
Right, go on,
Because-
explain your logic. Explain your
because-
logic, yeah.
10 14-inch guns, fantastic. Brilliant. 21 knots is equivalent to the battle line speed everyone else has. And they say, and with 9 inches of belt armor, they can resist guns. And you leave out the fact that they're vulnerable to basically every other major fleet power's primary battleship guns.
They have to look good on paper.
Well, yes, but
Right.
they do though.
Right.
On paper.
Also, even then, fleet, I would actively take an Almirante Latorre over a good number of the early US standard. Well, not standards, but the early US battleships.
Well, yes,
Which they
that's-
could very easily go. Whereas instead they could go for them because they would still make sense. We've got a small navy.
Well,
Albonia is not-
I would
easy
suggest
women.
I would suggest getting New York.
Well, New York's not a standard.
I didn't say standard though, did I?
Well,
Yeah.
no, but the New York's
but-
You're the one.
good though.
You're the one who's been doing
But the New
You're the one saying standard.
But the New Yorks are basically just the same ship I said, but with actual armor.
No,
Yeah.
they're not.
They have 21 knots of speed, roughly. They have 10 14-inch guns. And they are actually, and unlike the Almirante Latorres, they're actually armored to resist their own guns
Good.
at normal battle
You
ranges.
can sell them on that. You can sell them on that.
Good. They're also coal-fired going into the oil age.
Well, so is Almirante
And-
Latorre.
They're
Yeah,
a dated
but-
design.
So is Almirante
But-
Latorre.
What engines do the New Yorks use?
I mean, yes, they have triple expansion steam engines, but that's not... If we're talking about Albonia, and we're saying they might have a small navy,
See, if you want to try and argue it, I would say the New Yorks are also slightly too good. So, no, you say something like the Wyomings.
No,
Because-
because you're not going to be
Yeah,
getting
that's
them
way
post
too old.
Oh! Because you can try and buy them off the Americans. This is something that would be... You have money, you can do these sort of things. You take their old stuff.
That...
You can... Because keep in mind, for every time anyone else has done Albonia questions, normally, you're still having to
Buy
look
off
at
the
those
shelf.
procurement requirements.
Yes,
But that
it's
wasn't listed.
off-the-shelf stuff. But why would you get a pre-World War One, quite an old by this point pre-World War One battleship, if you're
It was
looking to
supposed
build a
be
modern
8
navy?
years. 8 years at the longest, probably closer to 6.
Still up. The problem is the 12-inch guns, though. That's really...
See, it's still 12-inch guns.
Cheap and easy to manufacture. Easy to keep running.
No, that's why
you can-
I think a New York is much more convincing as a choice.
I mean, honestly,
It's
because...
not new enough to be
The problem is, though,
devastating,
you
but it's
get
not
New York
old
is
enough
still
to
too
be
good.
irrelevant.
I mean, honestly, we could... I mean, honestly, the funniest thing about this is that we could actually doubly screw the Albonians and have them buy both a New York and an Almirante Latorre.
Mm,
Which would
I still think you get them the back
which would doubly you know what, actually, let's sell them on the idea of a 3-ship battle squadron and have them buy a Bayern, an Almirante Latorre, and a New York.
No,
Yeah.
because they wouldn't accept that.
Why
Yeah,
wouldn't they?
that they wouldn't
Yes.
accept.
So okay. So what I would say is, we say if you can get them cheaper, get the Wyomings, which is like bulk muscle. If they've proven they work, and then for the fancy ships, we get a Bayern or two.
Well, no, we don't
Now,
want them to
don't
have
get me wrong,
fancy
Bayerns
ships.
are very good, but the Bayerns have custom-made machinery that nobody else is using. They're a mixed fuel power plant.
Which is that mixed fuel isn't the
They're very high pressure for what they are, and they're very mechanically unreliable. They've also got a non-standard caliber of gun
I mean,
that you can't pick up. No one else is producing those guns, and the only country that can isn't allowed to make them anymore. So they look good on paper, but you don't have the sustain for them.
Again, though, Bayerns are actually just straight up too good, Foxo. Because
and also
for everything
the
else, they actually are a still very viable asset in this period.
And also the whole
And going
point is,
forward.
It's a poison challenge of sustainment. They're going to be a pain in the ass to sustain.
What
You
I-
can get different shells from different countries.
And what I will also
Or start
point
up your
out
own
is the
production.
whole point with Albonia is that the Albonian government has no clue about any of its armed forces and hands it off to people who they think know what they're doing. So you could sell them whatever you like as long as you can spin it right. So we don't have to worry about them not
Yeah.
accepting 3 ships of a different class. We can just sell it.
No,
as-
they will say no to that because this makes no sense.
Well, they don't know anything about Navy. They're
They
just telling us
do.
to do it.
the
Like,
No,
the
there's
entire
still
premise of the
basic
Albonia
logic that
is
people could
they
apply.
have to look good enough that you don't get shot.
Because in that case, Fleet, because they're going off the Chieftain's one, why didn't he go for a combination of, well, for our tank force we use nothing but MAUs, IS-3s, and etc. No. They standardize on, this is this type, this is that type, because that is what we can do.
Well, in that case, then I'm going to
You don't just go, yes, let's get like...
I'm going to return
Because
to
at
my
that point,
original...
you go, I get one of every awful ship ever to exist.
Okay, well, I'm going to return to my original point. I say, well, you go with the Almirante Latorre, because it's a coal-fired battleship. Well, yes, it has turbines, but it's still coal-fired. Sorry, mixed. It has oil sprayers, but it only has 9 inches of belt armor. It has no long-term staying power. Whereas the New Yorks, despite their...
They do.
Well, no, they don't.
Also, Almirante Latorre is almost 23 knots.
Well,
but
yeah.
not 21.
Well,
You'd be fast.
And like, I think you're underestimating, as you are underestimating Almirante Latorre, as you do semi-frequently. But also, then there's another problem of Almirante Latorre. If you raise a complaint about the Wyomings being too early, Almirante Latorre is earlier.
No, that
Yes.
was Foxo's complaint. My complaint was the 12-inch guns. Nothing to do with the age of the ship.
My complaint is they're not going to be in the acquisition bracket for a modern fleet. Because a modern fleet is going to want modern ships.
Well,
Like, I'm sorry, but the British Army doesn't buy Challenger 1s when they want to replace Challenger 2s.
well, the thing is, are we going? Is the problem is Albonia building a major fleet, or are they having to buy what they can get?
It's going to be building a major fleet.
What it says is they need a navy. They need a new navy after the First World War.
Do you have any input on this, Dr. Clark?
I'm letting this play out at the moment because
Okay.
I don't want to crush Fleet's creativity.
So,
And
so
also
from my
because
perspective,
I honestly enjoying it because Fleet is justifying himself quite well, but he keeps forgetting he needs to add in extra words. He'll get there. He's doing well.
Scoot, from what I'm seeing, Wyoming is laid down 9th of February 1910. Arkansas is laid down 25th of January 1910. Not 1909.
that's probably when she was ordered. But
So if we're
okay.
Foxo makes a good point though. Foxo does make an excellent point.
because as I see it, if you're building a new battle fleet, you're gonna want new modern battleships, or at least
I've got it.
modern
I've got
or
it.
previous generation.
I've got it.
battleships.
I've got it. Something that combines exactly what I want with the requirement for a new ship. Something that looks good on paper as a battleship, but is deeply flawed going forwards with some of its issues. And one in particular.
Go on.
Leon,
Francesco
Leon?
Caracciuello. 28 knots.
What?
8 15-inch guns.
They're not available yet.
But no. Remember, the thing with Albonia is that you can place orders for ships, or stuff that was available in limited numbers in real life. For example, when the bunch of YouTubers did that whole Albonian Liberation Front, they included things like ME-262s as fighter aircraft.
Yeah, but that's because they were actually,
But you could
because they didn't get 262s, they took Su-9s, which they were getting surplus from the Soviet
Also,
Union.
and even then, why are you giving them a good ship again?
but no, the whole point
Well,
is...
no, okay, right, Dragon. Let me explain it to you. We're going to need a ship that is either new or previous Warbuilt generation.
The Caracciuellos
Then
match
don't
that.
look at the Italians.
Because they have... Their short legs are going to hurt them, so their lack of range is going to hurt them.
So which ocean is it in?
Albonia. Albonia has never been described of how long of a range they have. Yeah, Steve Cox was going to mention the one that I was going to bring up when we get to battle cruisers.
Yeah, that
which
was
is
going to be my choice. Yeah,
Courageous, Glorious,
yeah.
and Furious.
I think we're all in agreement.
They're not battle
there.
cruisers.
Yeah. Well, no,
Well, actually, it's suggesting
we can
the
sell
flinger.
them. We can sell
would
them as
sell
battle cruisers. Yeah, we
cruisers.
can sell them as
You
battle
just do the
cruisers.
opposite.
Yeah,
Fisher was just lying to his politicians.
yeah. That's the thing. We can actually sell them as battle cruisers. So well, it's nice that we're all on the same page regarding that. But the reason for the problem is again, they're mostly pre-war. They wouldn't be considered as viable by the Albanian government.
And what have the British done with theirs?
Yeah, I think the Carachuelos are flawed and they're very weakly protected for what they are. They own from what their belt arrangements are. The Carachuelos are very weakly protected, and their framing, well, they are battleships. From what I'm aware of the design documents, they're on the very lightly framed side of it, so they're not going to be able to stand up to as much punishment in future or in any particular engagement. Yeah. And with 9 inches of belt armor, the Carachuelos are good luck if you run into something like a QE or a Nagato or a
outrun them and get away from there quickly. Basically, that's your only option.
They're fast ships. That's the issue.
Then, if you want a ship that's not, I still think they're too good of a ship. You could try, if anything, try and sell them something Russian.
The problem, I mean, I suppose we could sell them the borrowed.
You've got Imperator Marias, the Imperator
Dragon,
Nikolai's.
Dragon, you've just hit on the ideal solution that it combines everything we want. The Ismails, the Borodinos, their battle crew, I know they're called battle cruisers, but we're going to sell them to them as battleships because we can say they have the same armor as the previous generation of Russian battleships, the Ganguts, which they do. They're only 26 knots. So yes, they are slightly faster than some of their other contemporaries, but not by much. And they can't run from things like Hood, Renown, and Repulse. They have 12 14-inch guns, but, well,
in problematic turrets.
Yep. And again, the short legs on them. They're designed for work in the Baltic. They're not designed to range across the high seas as Albonia might or might not want. So, can we all agree on the Ismails? Is that acceptable enough? Does that include enough of the tangents everyone wants?
Definitely a good idea.
So battleships, Ismails. Battle cruisers, I think we have a rough consensus already with Courageous and Glorious.
No.
Really?
Yeah. A, they're not battle cruisers. And B, they're going to be a really hard sell.
I think it's easier to sell the flingers to them.
Those are easy to say. Why not build a third Renown or Repulse?
I was thinking, well, why don't we have them build an Admiral class?
Politely.
Because an Admiral's good.
But it's a pre-Admiral redesign class.
Foxo,
so it's pure battle cruiser.
But
I mean,
again,
we can go better
and
than that.
Abonia is going to ask, why are we building that instead of the revised version?
Well, in that case, then we can get around that by going across the Atlantic. Order Lexingtons. Battlecruiser 2 word. It has very limited potential for future upgrades because of its structural integrity. And if it runs into something like Hood, and because it's not been revised, we get the effect Foxo wants without the complaints Dragon has said that they will rightfully raise. It looks good on paper, but in practice, with the way the world's going to develop navally, they're going to have problems.
What year was this question set on?
It's just it's basically just after post-World War One.
But pre-Washington, so we've got a lot, so we can pick from some of the Washington cherry trees and some of the designs that are coming up out of that. So are we all right with the Lexingtons? Does that satisfy enough of everyone's? And again, and also Sidon is right. Different ammo from the battleships, which complicates supply.
That was going to happen anyway, though.
Yeah.
But I would like to throw my hat in for the Mackinsons.
Again, they're quite good.
Germany lost. Why are we buying ships from a losing country?
And they're not that good.
Money. But the German battlecruisers performed very well, and they sank British battlecruisers. They're tried and true. We know they sink British battlecruisers.
Well,
Hence my
The oldest
suggestion
of the
of
old.
buying the flingers themselves.
Yes, though. I think, but the thing with the Deflingers is a lot of the stuff for them still exists. The Mechanisms, it doesn't.
I suppose.
Yeah, but you could get the deflingers right now.
I could see the arguments for both. But I think the Lexingtons fit better in terms of lack of upgradability. Like, you could correct the problems with the Mackinsons, and because they are battlecruiser one word, they have the structural ability that you can, in theory, if you want to, rebuild them into quasi-fast battleships like the Congos had in the interwar period. You can work out the kinks with the Mackinsons, and you can still get a ship that can serve you into the 20s, 30s, 40s, if you do your upgrades right. The Ismails don't have that because of the way they're built, and their guns.
But you probably could get it out of the Lexingtons.
Not with the struct. You can get a battle cruiser, one word, but you couldn't get a fast a battleship like you could if you rebuilt the Mackinsons.
Yeah, but you've still got a very lethal battlecruiser.
Battle cruiser, two words that can only run away from
Yeah.
anything with guns equivalent size to it. Which...
Yeah, which is what a battlecruiser should be doing. As a battlecruiser, you shouldn't be standing and fighting with a battleship or
yeah.
another battlecruiser.
Well, yeah, it shouldn't be, but that's exactly what we're going to tell our captains to do.
Yeah, but to be
But
fair,
it is.
now
I was
buying
thinking the Mackinson, because the Mackinson wouldn't be able to effectively run in the post World War I world
But the problem is, it could in
with
theory,
ships like the Admirals running around.
but it could in theory fight, and that's the
Not
problem.
particularly well.
Okay, so I think we'll leave the battle cruiser. Yeah, basically, C-Dollars puts it best. You have 16-inch guns, slug it out with battleships. That's the reason for the Lexingtons, is that little caveat you give the officers. Because you could do that in these opponents. You can basically tell them, like, this is what we want you to do. Aviation ships, and this is why I said aviation ship is the category, not carrier. You don't buy carriers. Yeah. $2 is right. You buy Art Royal. You say the carrier.
Why do we buy them to period?
Basically because you want. Well, basically because it is a rising field. A lot of the major navies of the world during the war operated ships that carried seaplanes.
Yes.
So.
But if you ain't getting a proper carrier, they're gonna go, well, why are we going with a known to be out of date technology that's
seaplane
not as good
carriers aren't out of date at all. They're
compared to carrier full-blown flight deck carriers?
yeah, they're not out of date.
Would you want to tell? Do you want to take Argus if you knew something like Glorious was in theatre?
No. That's not even comparing Argus, Foxo. This is comparing something like Ark Royal, which could launch 3 seaplanes, to something like Eagle or Hermes.
Yes, but you're not seeing this right. You're not putting this in the right frame of reference. So carriers are experimental at this point. That's one of the lines we're using.
Idea.
Can I
Go on, please.
Also, seaplane tenders and seaplane carriers are a mature technology. Also, as we know, seaplane tenders as vessels continued to be used by all of the major navies and some minor navies throughout the interwar period and World War II. So they didn't disappear when the carrier comes along. And so basically we're selling this on our first steps into naval aviation when we could probably get a carrier of some kind. We're basically putting the brakes on that and forcing Elbonia to go slow. That's my reasoning for this. So you go with...
If you want them to go slow, you give them something like Burn.
No, Bairns.
Where yes, it's a full carrier, but they learn the wrong lessons.
Yes, but it.
Or you don't give them this capacity at all, because to be honest, you could easily say, we don't need this because we've got these assets instead.
I think the age of the aircraft is quite clearly coming, and the Albanian government's not going to be daft enough to not have any aviation capacity at sea.
That's what flying off ramps are for.
Okay, what I think is the best thing we can possibly do to hurt them is get them a ship. Is to convert a cola.
What, Langley?
If we're being sensible, or we convert an Ismail and do what the rest of the great powers are doing, and converting one of our capital ships to create a large carrier.
So I suggested something like Burn, where they explicitly would learn the wrong lessons of carrier operation.
I do feel like that's still giving
Even
them
more
that's still giving them a flight deck, and I'd rather not give them a flight deck.
It's a flight deck that's
Even
useless,
though a flight
effectively.
deck means nothing if they don't have either the planes or the carrier itself is just not good.
Bern does teach the French the wrong lessons, but calling her useless is a little bit...
Right, ironically, I actually like Burn, but what was she useful for?
She's a...
She's a good aircraft, Barry.
I was about to say, I can come up with one thing she was good at, and that's it, and Fox has just said it.
Well,
But at that point, though, you might as well have a merchant vessel, Foxo.
Well, no, that's in the Second World War. During the... Like, as an asset during a potential 20s or 30s Mediterranean conflict, she could generate strikes against the Italian fleet, and the Italians have no capability in return.
So they have land-based aircraft.
But they have land-based aircraft.
Yeah.
There's a different...
They take one look. One look at Burn and decide they don't need an aircraft carrier. That's the main argument they have have an aircraft carrier.
Well,
if you're actually making your rival go, your thing's so bad.
As we know full well, there is an entire difference between we have land-based aircraft and that actually being a useful adjutant to a fleet at sea. It actually being responsive, on point, at the Admiral's touch, ready to go at a moment's notice, being able to generate, control, direct.
But it's what we can argue.
You could technically apply that argument to carriers as well.
Well,
you can make the argument of, we have land-based scout planes. Four-engined, much bigger four-engine things that can let us do this recon operation for the fleet.
I mean, I suppose that is a way of looking at it. Yeah, so I suppose we could. But yeah, I suppose that's a good point. We just go no acquisition, denied.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
So we go. Okay,
we don't
go with
need
that
these.
Then. Yeah, we go with that then. So heavy cruiser. Honestly, I'm gonna lean into nostalgia here, and I am basically gonna try and sell them on acquiring the Tennessees from the US, the 22-knot 10-inch armed armored cruisers. And the reason why I'm going to sell them on that is because I'm going to say, look at the legion of 22 to 24-knot cruisers that the powers are using as their general purpose bread and butter. Because we all know that the rise of the 30-knot cruiser is coming, but the Albanian government doesn't know that.
The Hawkins exists.
Yes, but the Hawkins are a special case, and we're gonna say, and I'm gonna sell them on. Well, look, we need overmatch, like, to protect our trade, and like this is what are these, and be our station flagships, and this is what we need. And the Tennessees are an overmatch against any cruiser in the world today, and like and we can get 6 of them, and it's gonna be a great way to boost our prestige because they look really good, and they've got a big battery of.
Spending with Vickers lately. Can I just ask this question because you've really started to sound like a Vickers salesman?
Yeah.
Look, when you're selling to the Albanians, you've really got to lean into it.
Yeah, but it's more of how much of the Albanians are gonna go, cool, but battle cruiser.
Well, if
Like,
you're
we've
one,
got to justify the existence of. You're justifying the existence of a 10-inch armed heavy cruiser
Well, because
in the era of the battle cruiser.
because we lean into the argument that we've made and the doctrine we've written for the Lexingtons. The Lexingtons aren't our heavy cruiser warfare force. No. They are our heavy capital ships. They go and fight the other capital ships. That's what they're there for. That's what we've told our officers to do. We need heavy cruising assets. That's what these Tennessees are for. and they're
I think
there
the
to
Tennessees
escort the
might be a
One thing
bit
convoys.
too
attacking
old.
against the government. There's another thing killing your own officers.
Well, no, because of, well, bear in mind the government just sees these big ships with 16-inch guns, and we tell the officers, you know, you're capable, you're able to do this.
Well, right. So here's one thing: most armored cruisers have already basically been. The idea of them, that you don't really see many more of them built past mid 1900s.
I'm
Yeah.
aware.
The
So,
Tennessees are really
have
old.
you
to some-
heard of the Rurik?
I mean, Rurik's also a choice as well. She's a she.
We even have an example of that, of one that actually functioned, and the Russians no longer want her either.
That's a genius idea, Dragon. That's genius.
She's armed with 10-inch guns as her primary. Yes,
And-
she's got 8-inch guns as her secondary, so she's got a decent battery there. Oh, it doesn't matter. She only has 6 inches of armor at most, and 21 knots it can be dealt with.
Yes, and then for the, do we convince them to order another one?
Yeah, you probably can, because Vickers will go, okay, more than likely.
Oh, Dragon, that's brilliant.
Because also,
That's
if anything,
brilliant.
the Vickers are going, why do you want us to get triple expansion again?
I mean, we can we could basically tell them to order Rurik 2 with the 8 with the full 10-inch hexagon, and then we convince them to put direct drive coal turbines in to really make her range drop. Like, she's faster now. What do you mean she has to wear her turbines out to cruise? Oh, that's brilliant. So Rurik and Rurik 2 with the armored cruise. Also, we did seem to lose Foxo there for a second. Is she all right?
And her internet might have dropped, potentially.
Oh, there we go. Light cruisers. So, post-war. I think the post-war option is basically the towns. The World War I era towns. You can lean on their very good track record during the war, how successful they were fighting other cruisers and various actions for the Royal Navy. And they are good light armoured cruisers. In fact, they were the vessel that coined the term light armoured cruiser. But here's but here's the thing. In terms of a future-proof design, they are not. 24 knots is not going to be sufficient for long. But we can really sell them on. Look how effective they were. Look at their combat record. They're going pretty cheap right now. We can get lots of them.
Yes.
In particular, if you try and buy the Bristol subclass.
Yeah.
I've got a counter proposal.
Hmm?
The Refuser class 1913 cruisers. Or even if you built in the Great War, they are fast and effective light cruisers for World War One.
Yeah, I think that's
Armed
two
with two
sides.
6-inch guns
Yeah.
and 6 4-inch guns. They're essentially, by looks of it, the town class is a smaller, faster sister.
Yeah, I think that's basically two sides of the coin. I think you probably go with a mix of both, because either way they're obsolete. I think you probably go with a mix of both cruisers. You buy our fusers and towns, because that way you've got a mix of, you know, fast and slow cruisers, but they're still
Actually,
on a ticking clock towards, you know, Washington.
or do you buy C class?
No,
No,
the
C-class
C-
are actually very good.
Yeah, the C's are too fast. The C's are actually pushing towards 28.5 knots, and they actually have the
but so are
size
the
and
air
capability. Well, no, the problem is that the C's have the 2 6-inch and 4-inch, and depending on what C's you get, they also get an all 8-inch gun. Sorry, all 8-inch, all 6-inch gun layout.
I thought that was the Danae class.
Nope.
No.
No. Only the first batch of C's don't have that. Only the first batch of C's have 6 and 4s. And honestly, at that point, you're better off going for the older Arethuses, because you've not lost any speed, and they're
This-
even less
Also, for the
effective.
record, even though that first set had 6-inch guns refit onto them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my thought process with the C's is that they're a poisoned apple. Because they're just good enough that you wouldn't want to replace them.
Well, thing is, we're basically...
If they're 20 knot cruisers with 6-inch guns.
Well,
but they're still a very dated cruiser design, and there's very little room to build them up again. There's no.
I feel like you get the same effect with the Arethuses, but it's even more pronounced. And
Yeah,
then,
but
and
it's-
then we've also got the towns as well, as they're heavier muscle, which is slower. It's
I mean, I just brought up the Seas because the Seas are being built post-war.
they are, but the problem is
If we need it to be if we need it to be a modern cruiser,
cruising.
we'll use the Sea instead of the Arethusa.
Yeah. I think you probably buy a mix of Arethuses. Yeah, I think what I'll accept is you'll probably buy a mix of Arethuses and Seas.
Yeah.
And that's because then that is a poison chalice. Destroyers, I am going to go with I forget her name, the one that Fisher came up with, the massively overblown destroyer. What was it called?
A little this narrows it down. Swift, Eki's suggesting.
Yeah, but the Swift will be too old at this point.
Yeah,
1907.
Yeah, but she's big and like powerful, and she's bigger than.
She's
Is she?
old.
Right, no, she's not, because she's got one.
They also produced a big one post World War One.
Yeah, she's got one 6-inch gun, two 4-inch guns, and two single torpedo tubes. You are not convincing them to buy that, I feel. Because its whole point was, this destroyer hits 34 knots consistently. And she was laid down 1905.
Just think about what.
Okay, controversial opinion. Get a bunch of wicks.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking.
Honestly, yeah, they're not. Yeah,
Capable destroyers, but you can't push the envelope with them. They're a dead-end
Yeah.
design.
yeah, and they don't even have some of the things that you can't even do some of the jury rigging that the Clemsons can afford to have done to them. The Wicks just can't handle it. The Clemsons can just about, but the Wicks can't. Yeah, no, I think Fox is exactly right.
Or you get the Acherons. Or something along those lines.
And now we come to submarines.
But just think. I said wicks because we could probably get the wicks cheapest ships.
No, the K.
That's how many the Americans made.
The reason why I suggest Acherons is they exit Royal Navy service in 22.
Yeah.
They were built just pre-war. You got potentially up to 23 of them. Ignore the fact that multiple of the ship class have different boilers and different numbers of shafts. You only get two 4-inch guns and two single 21-inch torpedo tubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As for subs, no, Steve, the K class are going to be a non-starter. You can't really sell them. They have a laundry list of issues, and none of their specs make up for it. The two options I'm thinking of is you sell them on the M class, or you sell them on some of the larger German U cruisers, because they look good on paper at the time, but they don't really have much staying power in the interwar period, and will be rapidly obsoleted by the rise of aircraft.
These submarines almost starved the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
They almost beat the Royal Navy if it was not for the failure as the army.
And look at these guns. Like with these guns, like you could fight destroyers before they can get within gun range. Honestly, Gov, totally. Like we swear.
Yeah, imagine hitting like cruise liners that oppose you with them.
Yeah, I think you sell them on the big U cruisers. That was a dive, wasn't it? That was a dive. That was a dive of a question. That was. Paul Amos asks, do you think Genghis Khan's policy of religious tolerance meant that the empire lasted longer, and do you think that the later adoption by Khans of Islam led to its breakup? I'm not well versed enough on the history of the Mongol empires to make an accurate pronouncement on that statement.
I would say it becomes more a symptom of conformity, which does cause some trouble over the wider empire. It's not so much the adoption of a particular religion, but adoption of any religion, and trying, to many extents, enforcing to an extent conformity with that religion, led to their issues. Because you're running
Yes.
such a large empire with such a wide range of cultures and customs. Once you start trying to enforce customs in one regard, you enforce customs in other regards, and that's the problem. Basically, that is their problem.
Because even under Genghis Khan himself, even the Mongolic tribes, like the actual Mongols, not just the steppe peoples, a lot of the tribes that make up his army are a mixture of Buddhist, syncretic Tengri,
Yeah,
Confucian,
yeah.
and it's
Not a good scenario, really.
yes. The adoption of Islam specifically is the bad thing, I would say. But it's like the same as any of like the Abrahamic faiths, because stuff like Chagatai and Ilkhan, because they were largely Buddhist, there wasn't their ideas on how the world works meant that they weren't diametrically opposed with the peoples they conquered. But when you get sort of to the Abrahamic faiths, especially the fundamentalist eras of the Abrahamic faiths, they can't exist in commonality with even other types of their own family, never mind.
They do
Stuff
have
like
fun.
the Khans of Astrakhan fight against the Cumans because the Cumans, yeah. The Abrahamic faiths were just not particularly well fit for the steppes. Which is strange because they did really well in the Saharan tribes.
I'm going to ask a question which is going to be a bit weird, but it's an important one. Has anyone tried a Big Arch burger from McDonald's, and was it any good?
No.
No. I've not tried one, I should say.
I had the Canadian one. I don't know how it would be over in Britain.
How was the sauce?
It's just a standard Big Mac sauce.
The lamb sauce.
In which case,
It's
in fact,
just
they're not.
my opinion
Then I'll try
of the Big Arch was it's just a Big Mac with different cheese.
Cheese.
Okay, I'll give it a go.
Right. Akizuki asks, Saratoga post 5-inch refit versus Akagi in her midway fit. Full-on carrier fight. Who wins? I am going to lean in favor of Akagi, since she still has her 8-inch casemates at that point. And they do give her a slight punch advantage. I don't think they give her a range advantage, but they do give her an ability to, well, hit.
Apparently, his post question is not a gunfight, it's just outright a carrier duel.
Oh, that's going to come down to the air wings, and it's more going to be luck of the draw than anything else.
Yeah.
Which were two words again? Which two was it again?
Saratoga versus Akagi. Full-on carrier fight.
Saratoga can launch her slightly faster, so she can get her air groups airborne slightly faster. That might have an effect, but that's about it.
Yeah, but again, like, she might launch those air wings faster, but again, they might go off in the wrong direction. And Akagi might launch late, but find her. But then again, the reverse could happen. Saratoga might launch late and find Akagi first. It comes down to the air, and it's hard to predict.
Yeah. It's basically roll a dice and you have an answer.
Yep. YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if all British battleships in 1914 turned into Queen Elizabeth class battleships, including ironclads, pre-dreadnoughts, and dreadnoughts? The Royal Navy just win everywhere that they choose to fight.
Does
if they
Britain
can
have
get the
High Seas Fleet at that point is crying.
The problem is the problem is going to be fueling
and
it.
the Grand Fleet wouldn't turn it down. As for fueling it, well, that would be a crash emergency program. But let's be honest, the Royal Navy now has a 24-knot battle line, uniform 24-knot battle line.
Yeah.
More importantly, it's like, what, 70 QEs now?
And let's be honest, at that point, also, probably the people having the biggest panic attack are the US Senate.
And I mean, politely at that point, the British are going to have to start handing out the QEs to the Dominions. Because, well, the Canadians have some oil reserves, so they can fuel a battle squadron. So they're going to get one. The Australians have access...
Fleet.
Yes.
Does this happen after war begins or before war begins?
After.
In which case, no, it's not going to be a handout in terms of sending them off to be deployed around the world and for fuel. They're going to be getting the fuel to the UK. They might slowly transition them, but for the instantaneous, from this point onwards, they have got the crews, and the crews are going to be Royal Navy. If they're handed out, it's going to be handed out over a 4 or 5 year period.
Well, yes, that's what that is what I meant.
But the fuel doesn't matter where the fuel. Doesn't matter where it comes from. They're just buying the fuel from everyone. So they're going to have a whole line of tankers going to Persia. They're going to have a whole line of tankers going to Canada. They're going to be buying fuel from America, and they're going to be really stretching the infrastructure.
I mean, stretching it probably beyond breaking point. The problem is mass oil infrastructure is still a little bit away. It's coming in the 1418 war. It's definitely coming, but it's not till the interwar period that the mass oil infrastructure really comes in. But you better believe the British are basically going to force that transition early because of this.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
They know.
But honestly, they'll still enjoy it. They'll enjoy it. The people who won't enjoy it are probably. Oof. I think there are going to be a good free. I think the Germans might well be crying.
How do
I think there might be
70 QEs?
Yeah.
Well, and just think, the Grand Fleet at the Battle of Jutland would entirely be made up of QEs. Every single ship would be in a Queen Elizabeth class for the Royal Navy. Every single one would have 15-inch guns firing the 15-inch shells.
Not just that. It says all the pre-dreadnoughts as well.
And the ironclads.
Well, yes, which means every ship which turns up for the
Gallipoli.
Gallipoli is going to be a Queen Elizabeth class.
Oh, bye.
Which means they might actually get through.
Yeah.
Just through sheer weight of fire.
Yeah. I'm going to remove that part of the land. No, you must understand. Not the fort on top of it. I'm going to remove that bit of land. And the fort.
Because you have about 10 QEs there, so that's, like, if they fire in a salvo, that's 80 15-inch shells.
Yeah, that's just... I cast deer area on the map. Not even grid coordinates. Deer massive circled area on the map, consisting of multiple grid coordinates. Goodbye.
It is absolute overkill, the amount of QEs that would
completely.
suddenly appear.
AMC Woods M6 asks, what if all US warships, along with the planes and infrastructure to support them and build new ones in January 1st, 1940, are replaced with their 1990 counterparts? How quickly is the war over, and what do you think the world's reaction is? America is the dominant power on the planet, and the war is over relatively quickly. If they can support and maintain those warships and aircraft, America just ends Nazi Germany, and Japan, and Italy, and possibly even the Soviet Union, in about a 4-year spread. Because if you've got infrastructure and aircraft going back to the 1990s, you know what you've also got? Atomic weapons, the ability to generate them, and the aircraft that can carry them. Yeah, have fun with that. Never mind the US Navy with all the Nimitz and the...
I do wonder how many wings are going to fall off some of those aircraft.
Good lord. I mean...
They'll be well used.
They would be
well used.
Because a lot of those aircraft are variable geometry. And they're a nightmare to maintain in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't even do that in the
I mean,
40s.
Apparently the infrastructure is there to support and maintain them, so they shouldn't have a falling off rate more than you'd expect. I mean, that's just death from US air power.
That's true.
Uh,
Why even use the air
yeah,
power? Just
yeah.
the Ohio's fire all their
Yeah, it's just I remove all
stocks.
the threats to US power, present and future. Soviet Union disappears, Italy disappears, the Germans disappear, Japan
British Empire
disappears.
disappears.
Yeah, probably
Yeah.
as well. And then the US is left atop the ashes going, right, I guess America is just the nation that exists now. Akazuki asks, another carrier question. Unryu versus Saipan. Unryu. The Saipan is a light carrier. The Unryu is a fleet carrier.
Saipan has no gun.
Eh,
No.
Unryu has 4-inch guns. Saipan has 40mm.
Yes, but even aside from that, it's still in a carrier versus carrier air fight. Unryu is a fleet carrier. Saipan's a light carrier. The air wing difference swings it in Unryu's favor. More scouts, more chance to spot. More aircraft available to form a strike and escort. Saipan can still win if it gets the drop on Unryu, but Unryu is going to have more chances, more dice, more rolls of the luck to get that drop on Saipan. I just... Akazuki, r/fuck you in particular. Oh, beautiful. YouTube Minecraft Watcher, what if in 1940, just as the Blitz was about to begin for England, 10 modern British AA and ASW destroyers alongside both of the QE carriers appear outside Cornwall? How badly does the Luftwaffe get obliterated, and where does the war go from there? Crews and support craft included. Well, basically, these ships have until their magazines run out, because you've not said magazine depth. So...
Yes, but let's be honest, the F-35s can... the magazines on the Queen Elizabeth are pretty good. If they have a full load of F-35s, then they'd be carrying more F-35s than Britain currently has. But leaving that to one side, let's be honest, what can you do before you run out of magazine depth on those ships?
I mean, you can systematically remove the Luftwaffe as a fighting force.
Well, no, you couldn't systematically take out Germany's infrastructure.
You could
I wouldn't bother with
systematically remove
Why
German
bother with
command.
Luftwaffe? The Luftwaffe can't deal with your F-35s. They don't have no chance to deal with them at all. So nice way, you might as well go and use those carriers, use those aircraft to go and strike targets which are going to stop the Germans, in nicest way, having a war effort within a couple of months.
Yep.
So that's what you
Reserving
do.
a GPU for Hitler, please.
Yes.
Well, again, why are you reserving a GPU? Use cannon. You know, the bomb can be used as something more interesting. Cannon, just blast them away with a cannon. Okay, you can do that with the cannon. You don't need to use
Bomb not
the
required.
bombs. The bombs are more useful for other things. The amount of times he'll be moving along in a vehicle, and I can assure you now, a Merlin with its lovely, Merlin search radar aircraft going and doing its AEW role will quite happily tell you exactly what vehicle he's in.
So, I interrupt this important Nazi destroying announcement to say that I have been released from work, and the thermostat on my car reads 41 communist thermal units.
Accept the Celsius degrees. You will love it eventually. It's better
Would
than Fahrenheit.
opening the windows help?
What? Sorry, what's the current problem?
It's apparently 41 degrees in this car.
Barunon? Well,
Yeah.
Outside.
you'll enjoy England. No,
We're-
unfortunately, Runon is not in Britain
We
currently.
have not been able to stump up the £10,000 bribe yet. We're working on it.
Yeah, no one's been able to do that, and I haven't gotten anybody to hire. And I
Who said
don't know if I
anything about
heard-
using bribes?
Anyway,
and I haven't had the accreditation agency get back to me yet, to my knowledge.
So, Tankax asks, question 2, with War Thunder releasing modern battleships, Soyuz is predictably extremely powerful. Disregarding certain capabilities of actually building it, my main focus is the bow armor. Soviets planned for these ships to fight bow on. I'm not sure about that. So they have extended armor on their bows to catch and fuse AP shells. In War Thunder, this made them invincible bow on. In real life, what would be the flaws of this design? I'd imagine having shells that on your bow would have had them lost looks.
Well, that was more about the
from the
deal with they're
flooding.
dealing with ice.
Yeah, I thought
they're
that
called
was-
ice. They're called icebreaker bows.
Yeah, I thought that was
World of Warships has it as well, and we have the documents from there listing them as ice-breaking armor.
Yeah, it's strengthening the ships. It's the Soviets. It's the one thing the Soviets learned and took on from the ice voyage. They basically demanded their capital ships, any new capital ships they built, be not vulnerable as the Ganguts were when they made the ice voyage. They did not.
Yeah,
want that
because
to
you should
happen
have a
again.
220 millimeter, quote-unquote, extended belt. Now,
Yeah.
admittedly, it doesn't go all the way to the bow, but it's also got a 50 millimeter lower bow.
Yeah, again, it's all about ice. It's not to do with.
But
It's not to do with planning to fight bow on. It's not. That's the Soviets. If the Soviets wanted an all-forward ship designed to fight in that arc primarily, they would have gone with the design that was the all-forward.
Nowatzki.
Yeah.
what, like Project 23?
Yeah.
Not 23, it's like 21 or something.
The Soyuzes were conventional battleships designed to fight. If not,
Project 21, Nelodsky, my friend.
Not, the Soviet Soyuzes were not designed to fight bow on. They were designed to fight as traditional battleships of the era did. It's all about the reason they have that. Like as Dragon says, it's all about breaking the ice. It's the lessons from the ice voyage. It's hard to overstate quite how much of an effect the ice voyage had on the nascent Red Fleet in their psyche. They basically all vowed never again. It's why you see the tranche of new icebreakers built as soon as the Reds can get building ships again, and it's why you see a lot of even their smaller ships have hardened hulls, because they never ever want to lose ships or have ships be incapacitated from ice ever again.
How frozen that country is, they have a bit of a issue with ice.
Yeah. And also, I think I'm not sure, I don't think Soyuz is all or nothing, but she has the sort of bulkheads that you would expect that if her bows are poled and flooding, she should be able to remain afloat. As long as the rest of her isn't
definitely
holed.
got what I would class as an extended belt, because you've got a 375 millimeter armor belt going back basically to past her first set of screws.
So,
what I mean is,
covering
has she got the forward bulkheads to withstand, the
actual
big
internal
bows?
bulkheads I couldn't quite tell you, but
Because that's what's going to make a difference, because that's the thing. If her bows are flooded, because she doesn't have a torpedo flat to drag her down, so I think basically at that point is, if her bows are flooded, can her forward bulkheads hold and keep, the rest of her keep her up?
now that's an interesting thing I just noticed. She has a tapering armor belt from the front. Her nearest to the front bow armor has 420 millimeters, which then drops to 406 millimeters before dropping only to about a 390 to 375 millimeter main belt. So I'll be honest, that might be part of why the whole idea of facing forwards, because they do have a much heavier section of armor at the front beyond what you would normally class as the main belt. Honestly, if you're going to have that, I still don't see why you wouldn't have had it all forward design, but hey.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if the US of November 10th, 1945 teleports to today? Well, first of all, confusion. Second of all, massive celebration. The sailors will be welcomed as heroes. The greatest generation is back, I guess. Although there will be some confusion amongst those who are still alive, meeting themselves again. But also, USS Enterprise CV6 will be immediately dragged off to be preserved. She ain't being scrapped again.
No. You've actually got something else, I think, before that. It's very quickly, America and Japan are in talks of how quickly can we have a VJ Day celebration.
Yeah.
Because they've got 2 months. In fact, well, not even 2 months, like a month and a half to get from, if they appeared today, to, right, how do we make this, 80 years of the end of World War II?
Yeah.
It's
With the actual
for
USN
clarification,
fleet that
because
was there, being there.
Going on,
I-
going on.
Let Rodon speak.
to clarify the question, is it the people or the ships? Or both?
It just says the USN. The United States Navy of November 10th, 1945 teleports to today.
I mean, we can show Nimitz the Nimitzers. That'll be neat. We can show.
Well,
And
we
we're
could-
about,
you might have some
we're
choice
about to
words.
decommission one of them.
Oh yeah. Like, can we have Nimitz?
How many people? How many people were in the USN at 45?
A lot.
A lot.
How many is a lot?
Give me a sec. I'm trying to find a rough thing.
Total
but...
manpower of the USN in 45.
Peak enlisted strength of the United States Navy in 1945 is apparently theoretically... at its peak on July 31st was 3.4 million, but apparently on actual VJ day it was more about 2.9 million to 3 million.
That's a lot of people.
And that's gonna, in the nicest way, that's going to further screw up domestic politics.
Yeah.
And it's going to have long-term knock-on effects when it combines with the current domestic politics we have going on that are going to be significant. I'll leave it at significant.
I mean,
I think that would be the...
I would point
The biggest-
out the generation you're talking about. Quite a lot of them have gone through the Great Depression. Very pro-union,
and they've just
and
finished
a lot of
fighting
them
the fascists.
the fascists. They might not be so keen on things as
Yeah, like there might be I don't agree with all this modern nonsense. But here's the thing, I don't agree with it. I'm not going to actively shoot you for not being the same opinion as me. Why?
Because I've just fought a war against people who actively like to shoot people who are because they're against the things. That's not my way now.
I'll be honest though, I do
It-
feel some of them probably could be bribed enough to do so.
And it depends on the information capture they get.
Yeah.
Because like if the first thing they see is newsreel footage from the start of the year, there will be problems. There
Like,
will be
Depending on the news they hear,
significant problems quickly.
yeah, like depending what they hear, if they hear stuff like, yes, the basically attack on the White House when everyone sort of did that, then the various different things of the Trump administration in that light could very much easily go, well, he's just as bad as the fascists, or they might have,
Dragon,
other ones.
Dragon, you're
Mhm.
forgetting something.
Mm.
You're forgetting his current term's inauguration ball.
Mm.
And some events and gestures which happened repeatedly during that event.
Yes,
I'll be
the
honest,
lovely
like,
symbol. Yeah,
I'll be
I
honest,
didn't really
it-
you're
speculate
gonna have to
much in
explain
the
that
UK.
later, but
Let's put it this way: if a certain multi-trillionaire did what he did in Europe, particularly Germany, he would have been walked off the stage in cuffs,
right, I see
or he
what
would
you
have
mean.
found a set of cuffs waiting
Now I
for him.
think I know
very
what you
shortly.
mean, but
Oh, and then
Yeah.
so basically the lads are gonna go, oh yeah, no, hang on, right,
You-
grab the rifles, boys. The US has been infiltrated.
Yeah, and because the Marine Corps is a constituent part of the Navy,
Oh,
as much as they like to believe that they aren't.
oh,
That could be, again, depending upon how the media works and what media captures that group in what order. No matter what, it's going to be interesting and it's going to have consequences which play out over decades.
Oh yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
happy to get Enterprise as a museum ship, but also
Yeah,
the internal politics are going to be
interesting.
broad.
I'm just
trying to
thinking
be
about a
certain.
certain U.S. Marine Corps general's approach to it. Chesty Puller's
Oh
reaction to
my
those events.
god.
Well,
Sorry.
let's put it this way. Chesty Puller is going to look at a lot of people who idolize him and be like, I don't recognize you,
Yeah,
and that'll be interesting.
indeed it will.
Luckily, we won't have to deal with MacArthur. We'll just have to deal with Halsey.
Ugh.
Yeah, Halsey's not the worst to deal with.
I mean, we could put Nimitz on a Nimitz to help support the Marines. Put
you
Nimitz
could
on
park
a
a
Nimitz.
brand new Midway next to
The old
Midway.
Midway. Well, no, yeah. Midwayception.
you could park the two Missouris together.
Well, no. Like, thing is, certain parts of that navy are going to be considered for integration into the modern USN. Like the Alaskas and the Alaskas and the Iowas could be. I can see the U.S. Navy, modern U.S. Navy, going. You have fresh machinery, and we still have people who know how to operate oil-fired boilers, and you have crews who know how to work you. Come here.
Maybe,
that, Dr. Clark?
and I am really straining maybe on this. Maybe the Alaskas get refitted into some sort of bastardized LHA.
Yeah.
I think the Iowas either go to be duplicate museums or they get turned into razor blades.
Well, no, the reason. Sorry, go on.
The refit cost for an Iowa to give it a modern capability is going to be too high. Congress is not going to cut a check for that.
I mean, because all they have to do is the same refits they got during the Cold War, but with slightly more modern radars. Like,
yeah, but think about how much those cost.
That's going to be very expensive, Fleet. You're pretty much going to have to cut the entire superstructure off and put a new superstructure on.
Why are you going to have to cut the superstructure off to put?
Because they are not going to put rotating dish radars on it if they're going to spend the money to put modern radars on it. And also, that's because modern fire control radars are not rotating dish radars.
Right, Fleet. Are you aware of just how sensitive modern radars are?
Yes, I am aware. And bear in mind, for a given value of modern, it only has to be capable.
Right, it was an issue when they were first rebuilt.
I'm aware.
Well, modern ships essentially have to keep their radars
Foxo, I am very well aware of that.
I'm giving context to everyone else in the chat.
Right.
Have to keep themselves almost perfectly cushioned. And one of the things they really, really, really do not like is something called blast effect.
It's not so much blast effect, it's shock. It's shock transmitted through the hull that's the real killer, not blast effect.
Blast effect. Yeah. And secondly, Fleet, who under which presidents were the Iowas modernized under?
Reagan.
Which was the one president that you could argue massively overspent on the military and things that weren't really particularly effective.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, the Iowas were absolutely effective. When they came out, they had the heaviest. They had they were the heaviest salvo.
What does Iowa do that a Tycho can't do?
She has the heaviest Tomahawk salvo throw weight of any ship in the USN, including the Tychos.
Yeah. But the Iowas are also the most accident-prone ships.
Well, yes, they
the US
were,
Navy.
but they weren't fresh.
Two things. One, Aegis flat panel radars are what now a 40-year-old system at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're closing in on 40 years at any rate.
Yeah.
So your definition of modern systems almost always include a flat panel radar.
Well,
almost.
Well, yes.
Keyword, doing a lot of work there.
But
and two, any shore bombardment target that the Pentagon's planners are likely to think about for the Iowas could be just as easily done with VLS land attack missiles.
all the 5-inch guns.
Yes.
I am aware. However, and I'm surprised he hasn't chimed in yet. You are forgetting the fact that you have 4 completely fresh, basically machineried Iowas that look very, very
for a
impressive.
ship that's not viable in the modern era.
You got
And those machines.
the only
They
way
were
for it to
modernized
be
under
relevant.
Reagan. No. I've got
Yeah,
no. Right.
you're-
At this point, the
Hang on,
Irish
Would you
modernization.
please stop going in circles and let me finish?
Listen, I've got to just get something through.
No,
going
but
down a blind alley, Fleet. You're
I'm-
going down a blind alley on the machinery. The machinery
Oh.
has got to be converted from heavy fuel oil to JP.
why
7?
does it have to be converted from heavy fuel oil, considering the
Because
US
the
said...
U.S. Navy doesn't have the infrastructure anymore for heavy fuel oil.
Yes, it
The
does.
DoD has been very good at getting to a
Doesn't.
unitary fueling solution.
It doesn't.
Yep.
It's
That's,
Almost
that's
all
basically
ships
the
now
problem.
are turbine fuel. Are turbines.
Gas turbines.
well,
So you have
yes.
to overhaul them. It doesn't matter how fresh the
Ruinon,
machinery
what
is.
about
You
the
still have to refit it.
Ruinon, what about the LHDs you operate that are fuel oil?
Are they the
They're
same?
being
Are they
phased out.
heavy fuel?
They're being
they're being
phased out rapidly.
Ugh.
Yeah, they're leaving service.
Well, in that case, then the Iowas
to be
aren't. Well,
fair-
in that case,
And remember,
then the Iowas aren't viable, and will probably go into museums.
during
course.
during exactly
They wouldn't have been viable anyway.
Well, they'd be viable as
You can
relatively.
question their viability under Reagan,
Well, no, you
but
can't
when was Reagan president?
in the 80s during the Cold War, and there's a
The
reason.
Iowa's modernizations, when it's debatable if they're useful, if they're actual viable combatants, is closer to them being built than it is today.
Yes, I'm aware. You do realise you're talking to the person who usually has to strike down proponents to modern battleships.
Yes, which is
right?
why I'm annoyed you're actually entertaining this.
Because I'm entertaining it because the man who I usually have to argue with over this is sitting there silently, not doing so. When I've been waiting.
Yeah,
for
but that's because
He's letting us do
Just
it.
in the nicest way, you are providing me with when I future have to argue this case with you. I can say, but you said this.
he's just like
And,
you dig your own grave.
in that case, then I'll turn around and say, "Well, you didn't say this, therefore I win every argument in future." You've literally just doomed
No.
any argument
No,
you
no.
make against big
No.
presidentships in future,
Ah.
Dr. Clark.
That's not how that works.
Basic law of arguments. You can't claim people are wrong for stuff they didn't say. You can't prove a double negative.
Like, I'm sorry,
the
but like I said, the Iowas only really work as presence ships if they have the fuel oil for them, and they're literally just there to, oh, look at this, cruise the world, we have these again, and then they go back to
Fair.
the US to be put away.
If you've got brand new Iowas, you might well do some gas turbine conversions on them, but that's about that. You can do that roughly on an Iowa. It's not going to be an easy job, though.
Is
What
there
I
a
would
ship?
say with all this though is that there's actually easier options for them to go with than going with Iowas in terms of what they want to go conversion. Because you're all thinking about the big, the cruisers, as in the Laskas, etc. Think about some of the big heavy cruisers you now have that are brand new.
oh yeah, the
Project Mars, Project
ground force,
Mars.
the landing force planners are going to look at the Clevelands, the Worcesters, the Baltimores, and the Des Moines and be like, "You scrap those ships, I'm coming to your house."
That'll do your job for you, and that also does your presence job for you, and they're far easier to convert and far easier to upgrade.
And
I
they're
mean,
cheaper
that's
to
what we do.
man.
I mean, the Worcesters. Hang on, how many Worcesters did they build?
Not many.
Because,
How-
and also one thing to think of too is that if I'm remembering my manning costs right, a 1940s Iowa will buy you most
Yeah.
of the crew,
They only built two.
not the flight, not the air wing, just the crew to operate the ship of a Ford.
Hmm.
Which one is more capable?
Yeah, I know. I hear you. I hear
Oh,
you.
and the Ford's cheaper to operate.
I hear you.
On the other hand,
Hmm.
On the
So,
other hand, Fleet
yeah,
has
the
just done a
Worcesters-
wonderful job of giving me all my arguments of future for arguing against him whenever he does this stuff. It says no.
how much use would some of the new Essex and Midway would be? think?
Not really
Just
much use.
have them
Helicopter, helicopter.
Not really. for the same reason you said with the Iowas, it's the engines that are going to doom them. You've already
Well,
got
if they're-
LHAs and other assets. You don't really need more flight decks like that, conventional flight decks. And they can't even, and they don't even have well decks.
Yeah,
If
but you can't just do
they're
a helicopter,
hangar-
helicopter.
Let Renan
Yeah,
finish,
but-
Fox. So now that you've
If
said your helicopter.
their hangar decks are tall enough, you could see arguments to either sell that and the machinery is minty fresh enough, or can be easily converted to JP5 or JP7, whatever the Navy runs on now. You could see arguments to either convert their engines or their boilers and reserve them, or sell them to allies who could use flight decks. Looking at you, Southeast Pacific, Southwest Pacific.
I mean, the Japanese will be entering negotiations immediately to try and buy the fresh Midway. Absolutely.
Why?
Because with relatively little work, she could be converted to take.
She would also be a carrier.
Yes, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
which they can't
A
legally
hard
You
can't
carrier.
have.
can't legally have.
Yeah, Japan is
That's
legally barred from operating aircraft carriers.
Australia is
At the moment.
interested in operating in Midway.
Yeah,
maybe?
the
at the
moment.
moment. But
yeah,
Okay,
at the
I'm
moment.
just thinking, do we see a Thailandese
no, the
aircraft carrier again?
no, the Thais still have an aircraft carrier.
No, Taiwanese.
Oh, Taiwanese.
Taiwan!
Oh, you said Thailandese.
No, she didn't.
Yes, she did.
Taiwanese.
She didn't
said
say
Taiwanese.
Thailand.
she did not.
I mean, can you put an F-35 on Midway?
If you strengthen the decks a little bit, yeah.
Oh, it's an armored
Um,
flight deck already, so it's got already positions in there that you can do it.
Well, I was mostly wondering. if
Yeah,
the
but how is
China
that going to
would be
handle the
nice.
heat?
You could.
Yeah, well, you can build things to dissipate the heat. You can put the same coating the British have used,
Yeah, you can strengthen the deck. You can. Yeah, no problem at all.
which, if I remember correctly, was developed in jointly with the Japanese anyway.
Have we forgotten NSJ King? Not really. I feel like we're already well into the rabbit hole here, and I feel like we have kind of gone a little bit far here.
Do you realise
probably-
Sunday's
King-
brew ship
King
is
is
brew
going-
ship's 200?
Wow, good for you. Well done.
That's just slightly worrying for me.
Yeah. Hey, I'm closing in on 100 of my own. Yeah. So.
Not doing too badly yourself.
Akazuki asks, if Shinano was properly converted into a carrier, barbettes removed, longer flight deck, how many more aircraft could it have theoretically held? Edit, and if it did get this refit, would it have missed submarine attack due to longer construction time? If Shinano is getting a full conversion to a carrier, she may not be finished by war's end. If they're doing a proper job, she may not be finished by the time the war ends. Or she may be finished and then her life is sitting in harbour, camouflaged, hoping nobody notices her.
So what I'm hearing is atomic testing.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because the Russians are not going to be allowed to get her. The Russians will probably be desperately begging to get her, but the Allies will put their foot down and be like, categorically no.
Uh,
They might
I
just
mean-
they might just go for it. They might just try and nick her. Commando raid.
That
Try
is,
and grab her.
I mean, she is a prize worth having. Large carrier.
But yeah, even if she gets a proper carrier refit and stuff like that, does it matter?
No, I mean,
The
she.
amount of aircraft she carries is going to be well over the amount of aircraft that an aircraft carrier could manage.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter.
Lots of
does it?
spares, though. Lots of spares. Which is always nice for an air wing to have.
Hence the reason why she might work better as a Japanese unicorn.
Yeah. Bone Meal Boy asks, what happens in 1939 if all British heavy cruisers are replaced by HMS Goliath from World of Warships? Very happy Royal Navy noises and a very, very,
Oh, yeah, I'll put
very,
this last line.
and a very,
Yes, you did that.
and a very, very, and since you've asked that, I'm just going to finish my joke. happy Royal Navy noises, and a very, very, very dead Admiral Graf Spee.
Yep, the basically
yeah.
what we agreed on.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I basically said, I actually went further. I reckon the Deutschland got caught as well. Considering the
Absolutely.
radar on that, and the counties out hunting.
Yeah.
Deutschland, and the nicest way, Graf Spee gets killed by Cumberland. Doesn't even get the way it survived the Battle of the Plate. Cumberland spots her in that scenario.
AMC Woods M6 asks, what if the Roman Republic and Carthage are to combine to form a superpower to bring the Eastern Hellenic powers to heel? They're fundamentally incompatible states. Such a union, if it existed, would last only as long as it takes for them to bring the Eastern Hellenic powers to heel. Then it breaks apart immediately. I mean, we already saw that happen. The Pyrrhic War. The Carthaginians and Romans do form a very, very tenuous and very, very loose alliance to deal with the threat of Pyrrhus. And then that immediately breaks down the moment he's defeated.
It's a big enough threat to justify it, and other than that, not happening.
Mm-hmm.
Because both of them think they're top dog. Rome will not bow to anyone. Neither
Yep.
will Carthage.
Yep.
No, it's worse than both of them think they're top dog. Both of them know they're top dog.
Mm-hmm.
Both
That's
of them
the trouble.
are
They
top
don't
dog.
have any demurement in their mind that they might not be top dog.
And in a sense, honestly, prior to the First Punic War, they're both right. When it comes to land warfare on, the Rome, the Italian peninsula, and that sort of area, Rome is top dog. When it comes to fighting warfare on land, when it comes to dominating the Mediterranean at sea, prior to the First Punic War, Carthage is top dog. They're both right prior to the First Punic War. And then
And they both want Sicily.
Yep, and so the collision course is set. And the rest is history.
Rome wants Sicily
I'll start
because it's a
it.
base to attack into Italy. The Carthaginians want Sicily because it's the primary method of controlling trade to the central Mediterranean.
And it's also a quite nice breadbasket for both of them, so they both want it for that secondary reason as well.
Yeah, but at this point, Tunisia is an absolutely brilliant breadbasket.
I know, but like it's a secondary
Like,
reason.
one of Carthage's biggest exports is food.
Yeah.
That shit's fine!
I mean, it is that period's definition of oil is good farmland. Good farmland? That shit is mine!
Russian Badger.
Nix.
Are you such a legend?
Akazuki asks, a daring 1949 class destroyer goes back to January 1st, 1914 and is at anchor at Scapa Flow. How did the Royal Navy react to the new destroyer, and how does this affect World War I? First of all, they don't look at it as a new destroyer. They look at it as some form of very weird scout cruiser. It's too big to be a destroyer.
It's about the same size as a scout cruiser.
Yeah.
Time.
But in regards to how they'll react, honestly, I'm going to turn this one over to Alex, because he has a better handle on thinking of the Royal Navy at the time and the officers in it than I do.
Well, they're probably going in nicest way, probably Jellicoe is going to go, woohoo, I've got a scout ship that's under my own control.
And has a radio to communicate with me. Well,
And has other things as well, which are really interesting.
Actually, the damn thing's heavier than most scout cruisers of the time.
Yeah, it's like at
Yeah.
full load, you're looking at 3,800 tons.
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing's
That-
basically a town class in tonnage.
It's also got.
And he's
Probably
also
has,
looking at his,
it prob-
he's looking at his torpedoes and going, I like those.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
a
I was about to
torpedo,
say
man.
it's probably got ultra heavyweight, ultra long range torpedoes for a destroyer by 1915 standards.
Hell, it's
Yeah.
faster than most scout cruiser, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
he's
What was-
going to be a happy man, a very happy man.
it was the Harwich Force, right, that was trying to keep a
Yeah.
plug in the channel. Don't
Yeah.
give this to the Harwich Force because you're not getting it back.
Oh, no.
And also, anti-submarine warfare. I forgot. It should have a
Because, I
sonar.
mean, warfare, it has full updated sonar, it has radar, it's got everything you will ever want.
It's
Yeah.
got RDF.
Like,
Basically, there'd be a lot of very happy Royal Navy officers up there. Very, very happy Royal Navy
Oh
officers.
no, there would be a lot of happy Royal Navy admirals, one extremely happy Royal Navy captain, and a lot of very unhappy Royal Navy officers.
Yeah.
I will agree that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Typical gunnery officer. What is your opinion on the variable sweep wing for jet aircraft? Why did the US only have at least 3 aircraft with the wing form, and do you think it's only a one-off solution? It's a solution born out of the time period it was created in, the needs of the air forces at the time, aerodynamic understandings that were available, and material science that was available at the period. Once material
You're missing
science
one.
and aerodynamics advanced, the need for it went away, especially with how maintenance heavy the concept is.
It wasn't even
You're
really
missing.
that
Right
much.
You're missing two key components there, Fleet. The ability to model airflow over the wing at various speeds and angles of attack, and the ability of onboard computers to do a lot of fly-by-wire work to keep the aircraft stable.
That's the primary thing, honestly.
Yeah, but it's like the biggest advantage of variable geometry aircraft is you can this is the thing with delta wings, is that you essentially have to build an aircraft to perform at its best at a specific altitude bracket. Because long wings are good at low altitude, but cause horrible effects at high altitude, and vice versa. The best way to get around that is variable geometry, where you change the shape of the wing depending on what altitude you are. Hence, where the F-14 becomes a delta wing at high altitude and high speeds. It's a
It's
very
obviously-
Oh, go
This
on.
is obviously this is basically solved by fly-by-wire down the line, but yes, it's just it's
But
just
there
in the
is still a-
60s. It's just the best way to do it under their current limitations.
Yeah,
Well,
and,
Aerodynamically speaking, that makes sense.
and even then, to a degree, it's still a thing nowadays. It's just the advantages you get from variable geometry are lessened by fly-by-wire.
The one advantage that you also see too with a swing wing over a fixed wing is that you can put the stall speed in the floor by extending the wings full out, which you can't do with a fixed wing. Your stall speed is your stall speed is your stall speed. The other thing that's going to cause the death of the swing wing, as really this is a political decision influencing the design decisions, is that you cannot make it is extremely difficult to give a swing wing aircraft a reliable reliable minimal radar cross section.
Now,
Like you can
Yes,
fix
because
because
it changes its
the geometry
aspects.
never changes. So, with the emphasis on one airframe being able to perform as many individual roles as possible, you're starting to get stealth on all of your airframes, which stealth and swing wings are two competing engineering requirements.
Well,
You could get them to
Suppose they're
work,
not
but you get a
competing.
lesser product.
The interesting
Yeah.
thing is when we start talking about things like the Aurora bomb program.
yeah, because I know there's been prototypes and proposals for an aircraft that will shift into a very low radar cross section stealth configuration, but still has the capability to change its wings at the cost of that low radar cross section.
Yeah, I don't want to know what that's going to
'Cause-
cost the American taxpayer.
Yeah, because it was actually, if I remember correctly, a proposal by Raphael, of all people, for a stealth-capable carrier aircraft in the 90s, I want to say.
Okay, we have the F-35, so I'm good for.
Yeah, but it's one of those things of variable geometry was always very niche because it's inherently inefficient when you're designing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because as the F-14 Tomcat has learned the hard way, the wings fall off.
They're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, and it's a case of it was a
Diesel does
niche.
not help.
It was a niche the Tomcat needed and the Tornado needed. And if the niche for it ever comes back, it will return. Because there's ways you can make it stealthy, it's just not a priority in the coming generation.
Yes.
Because we haven't decided what the future of low altitude ground strike is yet.
We don't know where we are. Timu asks, would Dear Fleet and crew enjoy the traditional Nippon breakfast with miso soup and natto, etc.? Don't know, never tried it.
I love it.
Nope, not a chance
Don't
in
know what
hell.
it is, so I have no opinion.
Nope,
I
involves
love
NATO,
it.
not a chance in hell.
Typical gunner officer asks, question 2, in the Cold War jet era, why didn't the US design their jet aircraft with canards? Because very few nations designed jet aircraft with canards. If you count...
Okay, so you know how variable geometry is a very niche feature for niche uses in multi-role aircraft?
Yes, Foxo.
Canards are even more niche. And therefore delta
What?
wings. And navies don't like delta wings.
Well, the canards are inherently even
Why the
more
Americans are
unstable.
going now, apparently. But it's their Air Force going it, not the Navy.
Yeah, I was about to
Yeah,
say
of course I go
that
for
We
it.
don't know if that's the actual aircraft we don't know if that aircraft they showed off the image of is actually what it's going to look like. It could be a massive misstep. Until I actually see it in
but
service and see image video of it, I'm not going to say that's actually what it looks like.
Because canards, I put them in the same box as I do the reverse swept wing. In incredibly niche, but cool. But
Yeah.
you don't really want them for navies.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if the entire world...
You
Sorry.
spoke over
No, it's
Moe.
fine. Keep going.
Sorry, Moe. No, carry on. I didn't realise we both started speaking at the same time. Carry on.
Well, I was just mostly saying, fundamentally, we're getting to the era where the wing design don't affect the aircraft that much. It's more about how far will it fly and how much telephone poles can it carry.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter if the next generation planes a canard or whatever. As long as it carries 200,000 missiles that you could eat at like 3,000 miles, then you're good.
YouTube Minecraft Watcher
Honestly,
asks...
right-
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, honestly, right now it's more of a question of, can you carry radar and communications gear to talk to the bomb truck that's 50 miles behind you?
Yeah.
When you talk to the AWACS, it's going ha 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 at the possod without an AWACS.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway,
I don't know why they don't put
YouTube-
missiles on AWACS.
Because that... YouTube Minecraft Watcher asks, what if the entire World War II U-boat fleet teleported today? How long would it take for modern navies to deal with them? Either forcing them to surrender or sinking them? Not as long as you'd think, because a few things are going to happen. First of all, they will lose all radio traffic. They will every single U-boat will lose all the regular radio traffic it's been expecting and experiencing throughout its patrol. This will cause them all to act confused. They'll all surface and try to establish communications. This will result in them being detected, and they will be approached by ships. These ships will be like nothing they've ever seen before or anything they have in their books, their recognition manuals, at all. That will probably lead to them approaching those ships and signaling them, regardless of what, especially if they're flying a neutral flag. Which will then lead them to understand...
Fleet is so nice. Fleet is so nice.
Yeah. Because I'm just
he's
trying
probably
to think
looking
of,
for the answer of Ali Burke fires a bunch of fast rocks.
Well, yeah, but that's the obvious
I'm
easy
trying
answer.
to
I'm
think
fairly
of a
certain
circumstance in which
E8 go
a
hunting.
modern navy, of modern navies today, that have Atlantic deployed escorts that were not combat navies in World War II. And I can't think of any except.
Oh no, I wasn't. Oh no,
Maybe
I wasn't talking
Spain?
about. I wasn't talking about warships. Like the first merchant they come across, they're going to ask, "Who are you? What the heck's going on? Why are you so big? Why are you not in our logbooks?"
Or they're going to go,
You would do that.
Well, no, that's just.
eat torpedo.
So,
Well, no, that's just Dr.
Ooh.
Clark. Dr. Clark, that's. It's not like they've. It's. These are captains who have. They've lost all their radio communications that they've been getting on a regular basis. The first ship they see is not going to be in their recognition manual, and it's not going to look like anything they've seen before. At that point, you shift from I'm hunting to finding out what's going on before doing any other combat operations. You need to establish what's happened before you continue combat ops. That's just basic common sense, law of the sea.
I think you might be. I think you might be overestimating the reliability of radios in this period, and underestimating the submarine skipper's desire to be at the top of the leaderboard on tonnage.
I'm not denying that.
It's from around World War II, any ship that was in the active theatre that wasn't German was fair game.
Yeah.
Especially in the North Atlantic.
Yes, but again, I think you're all overestimating the desires of people to get kills and underestimating the lack of weather reports, consistent radio
Who was
traffic,
here?
reports of
Who
convoys.
was here was born prior to 1997.
I am.
Me!
Oh God,
Who was-
Oh, yeah, Brunon.
Right then, if
Brunon,
you're
you're
by the way,
vacuum tube.
if you're born prior to 1990, if you were born prior to 1997, then you are older than the best average age given for U-boat commanders. The vast majority of them were younger, especially later in the war. By the end of World War II, you're looking at lower than that by a long way. In fact, Foxo might look positively ancient compared to some of them. They are trained for. They are picked for their ability to be aggression, and they are picked also for their obedience to the party.
Yeah, and unless my standard operating procedures say you must, if something to the effect of when regular radio contact drops, you go into what the hell is going on mode. When I see a 100,000-ton cargo ship, which I will still be able to identify as a cargo ship, let alone one of these super tankers, I'm going to go ding, 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 ding. All hands, man torpedo stations, target, bearing, range. And I'm going to create a massive ecological disaster in the middle of the Atlantic.
Just imagine
I
cracking
might be a
open
little
one of the
confused
super
if I see a
tankers.
compressed natural gas.
All right, so ignoring Fleet's nuanced and detailed approach to the question, and instead getting to the boring, generic, they all get sunk by modern navies within 2 days part of the question.
All
that
get
far.
sunk in a nice way. There are,
Because they
in a
all
nice
get
way,
sunk by modern navies.
the fleet. The problem is, it's not going to be, let's say, a third do what you say. They behave nuancedly. There's going to be another 2/3 who probably just start shooting the first targets they see.
I'm not denying there will be those who do that, but it's more just
And the thing is, the navies and governments aren't going to be able to afford to wait around and find out whether you're in a third who are actually thinking about things before you do them, or if you're in 2/3 who are just shooting at targets for fear of what happens if you get back and you haven't shot someone.
No, I'm not saying that the Allied navies or the world navies are going to give any quarter. No, they're just going to sink on sight. Like
Yeah, and when you're and the other problem is too, when your ASW weapons and doctrine are rigged up to deal with some titanium-hulled Russian bastards, the little thin tin can steel-plated
noisy as
you know,
heck with no quieting.
Noisy as hell. Tinfoil and a dream. Not even SSKs
Yeah.
are going to. It's going to be like shooting tin cans with a 40mm.
And you better believe
There
that
will be no more can left.
you better believe that the German Navy is going to want in on that. Like, imagine the catharsis,
Question.
of just
You're
killing.
you're not going to even. Sorry, Foxo, but you're not even going to have the typical of we damaged the hull, which then imploded. The ship is just going to be fragmented and scattered over its
a modern ASW
little
torpedo.
cube of ocean.
A modern ASW
It's
torpedo
hit by Mark
slamming.
48.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Do
Not
they
even.
have enough of them?
Yeah.
Because Germany built a lot of U-boats.
If we bear in mind that each contact.
Lots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
a
Like.
ridiculous amount.
It'll be a multinational effort, but bear in mind, these things can also be caught on the surface. Long range radar, target acquired, missile away. Whoosh!
I don't even
And also,
think this would be a multinational effort.
It will be,
and also
because
too,
everyone will just put
It
the
will.
seed
With
behind
the-
us.
It will be because they'll run out of torpedoes.
Yeah.
well, the other thing too is, at least for the U.S. with the Atlantic and Mediterranean fleets, they'll just airlift ad caps to them
I mean,
and do
it's not.
resupply.
I mean, it's not even ADCAP's ruin on it. It's going to be surface vessels and aircraft as well involved in this. You can have lightweight ASW torpedoes, stuff like Azeroth as well. You might even have stuff like side-launched torpedoes seeing common usage just because of the amount of prosecution
These
the ships
My
are
modern
doing.
concern would be
submarines
that-
practicing their skills on old tin cans.
Yeah.
My concern would be just there's a lot fewer warships in the Atlantic than there was at the height of the U-boat campaign.
There are.
It's
But
going to be a
the-
lot reliant on pH and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the ease
Yeah,
of... the
and
ease
it's
of-
just going to be a case of I can almost see it being like the issue. Is anyone here familiar with Star Trek
I mean,
Yeah.
and
Uh,
the Tribbles?
not... I think...
Yeah, I'm just thinking
think
of the
you'll-
submarine equivalent of the Tribbles. Where they're not super dangerous. There is just that many of them in comparison,
Yeah.
they just become a
I
pain.
mean,
believe
thing is, I mean-
triples
I
are
mean-
classified as a galactic threat.
Yeah. I mean, thing is, Foxo...
Because the Klingons are so scared of small furry objects.
Yeah. I
It's because to actually quickly explain the lore quickly, it's because they ate entire planets to the point where they're uncolonizable and uninhabitable anymore, and almost caused a massive food starvation issue in the Klingon Empire.
So they're fuzzy Tyranids.
Yes,
The great
but,
Killing
Tyranids.
Titans, I say.
Yeah, but all you do is basically you give. So this place flies to the Atlantic. In the Atlantic, you divide the Atlantic up into grid squares. You form a multinational coalition of the French, the British, the Spanish, basically whoever wants in. You give each square to a warship with helos, and just tell them to go a hunting.
Dipsticks.
And you just clear the Atlantic that way. And then
The main problem you're going to have is if you have to deal with this problem, and then let's say China or Russia acts up and you have to deal with them, you're going to be out of torpedoes.
you would hope the various nation. Well, no, they're not. They can't gear up to produce enough torpedoes to replace losses. I mean, alternatively, do any nations have depth charges in inventory still for helos and aircraft?
Britain does.
Can they
We have
fit?
bigger orders.
Can they fit on other assets operated by NATO partners? And can we spin up production relatively rapidly?
No.
No.
Well, no, I'm sure.
Look, in my way, the
like-
easy scenario is to just wait for them to be on the surface and then shoot them with your deck gun.
Yeah,
And then,
we are missing two things. We are missing two things which are going to make this a whole heck of a lot easier. SOSUS, and the fact that cracking Enigma is child's play to modern computers.
I mean, they'll literally be broadcasting.
SOSUS doesn't necessarily even help in nicest way necessary because you remember these things are so noisy compared to modern day submarines that probably you'll have things like a Type 23 sitting in Scotland, off the coast of Scotland, being able to hear every single one in the middle of the Atlantic going, "Oh, good God, my sonar operators are getting headaches."
Oh, and also it gets better because because a lot of them will be trying to return to bases in France, so they will quite literally come to the French on the surface.
Can you just time fuse a dumb bomb and use that as a depth charge?
Basically, what you do is you just convoy merchants through the area, and just prosecute any contacts that try and attack the convoys.
Or just use your maritime patrol aircraft loaded up with airdrop torpedoes.
Also, we find out if there really were plans to have secret bases in Argentina, etc. Because where do the Type 9 turn up when the Type 9 commanders who decide to figure out something's wrong try and run away to?
Yeah.
Because, to be honest, I would have a lot of
Mossad
questions
will
about
probably be waiting for them. The Mossad will probably be waiting for
No.
them.
You forget the funniest thing.
I
How many
feel like there would be a lot of hard questions that should be asked if you wouldn't be able to get an average munition to kill ratio of 1.5 to 1.
Yeah.
Just because
Obviously,
even the
your
airdrop
munition kill ratio should be 1-to-1.
it should be 1-to-1. I'm just giving, you get duds, you get bad, stuff happens. So I'm giving them that 0.5 as a stuff happens buffer.
It does happen. Stuff does in fact happen.
Okay, I would say 1.1-to-1.
Yeah.
If it's any higher than 1.1-to-1, then I am asking questions of the suppliers.
Are you going to have a very uncomfortable conversation with Raytheon?
Yes.
Yeah, they will have it uncomfortable. I will enjoy it.
Honestly, it wouldn't
In
surprise.
fact, if I'm feeling it'll be nicer than the other option, which is I leave them alone in a room with my mother and their senior executives, so they can have this discussion with her.
I think what you're going to find is a very interesting tactic that's going to be
Having
used.
gone through that version of cross-examination, I can definitely testify that's worse than me.
I think what you're going to see as well is you're going to see a lot of subs hunting the subs, but not with torpedoes. They are going to use their powerful sonars to tail the U-boats and wait for them to surface. And when they do, they're going to hit them with a harpoon or whatever cruise missile that attack boat carries.
That's
Why just go to their sonar to full power and kill them all with earache?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doing a full power, full blast active sonar ping on you if you're if one of those submarines from close range.
Yeah.
On the other hand, are we going to randomly find a submarine with a tiger in it?
No.
Oh, come on.
No.
What happens if you tell the astute skippers that it's open season on German U-boats?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry. What happens when you tell the Type 212 and 214 skippers of the German Bundesmarine that it's open season on the Nazis?
They can't hunt that far.
They don't have to.
They can't hunt that
They don't
far.
have to. There'll be some U-boats coming back into the North Sea. There will be some leakage, I suspect, or there will be some in the North Sea transiting out to patrol areas, or transiting up to Norway after being built, or transiting to France after being built. There will be opportunities for everyone to kill some Nazis.
The major issue might be actually the Norwegians still find themselves getting a place occupied by Nazi Germany again.
Oh, come on.
Let's be honest. If any government's going to be late and not organised, it's going to be them.
Yeah, possibly. And
I think at this point you're just being cruel, Dr. Clark.
Yeah, you are being a little bit cruel. Right, and with that,
I'm pretty sure.
You say that, but when Trondheim is occupied by two Type 7 U-boats successfully, you don't come back to me.
Right. So, that is us wrapped up for this week's ramblings. We have gone for 3 hours, and I hope you have all enjoyed that immensely. There absolutely will be a catch-up ramblings this week. We have plenty of questions that we need to get through. So...
And I will be present for that.
Yep.
Fear me.
And so will Cyclic, and I have no doubt that certain people will want to poke him with modern day questions about what's modern day happened.
Any announcements?
Shit's fucked, yo.
Basically, The announcement I will make is that the Iranian Navy is about to experience what happened to their fathers in the 1980s. They're about to suffer from non-existence syndrome.
No, we call it a terminal failure of existence. Okay.
Yeah, because
Terminal existence.
they're trying to close the straits again, and they're forgetting what happens when you try to close the straits when the U.S. Navy's around. You end up not existing. Although I will suspect.
Can I say the one thing I've had with this conversation is that there are people actually demanding going, why is Prince of Wales in Singapore not there? And I'm sort of going, well, because there's a USN carrier there, so the Prince of Wales is in opposite South China Sea to make sure China doesn't do anything while the USN are distracted. Because honestly, you don't need Prince of Wales and a CVN to deal with the Iranian Navy. You need one or the other.
And also politely,
that's the position they're in.
And also politely, we really shouldn't be getting involved. And B, that is going to be one of the most missile and coastal littoral threat-heavy environments that has been seen in modern combat.
In the nicest way, Fleet, who supplies the mine hunters in the Gulf?
And in the other nicest way, Fleet,
You honestly think we won't be involved?
Good to go through Suez? How much of your oil is impacted by oil that flows through Suez?
Suez
Do you really not want to have a seat at that table if the Iranians decide to get giga-froggy?
Well, they are, but also...
Aren't there 2 U.S. carrier groups in the Gulf?
But either way...
quick question.
The real point I was trying to make is that you really need to be... That's right about mine warfare. But in terms of that environment is going to be the missile magazine depth, the proliferation of midget submarines in that area. The US is going to absolutely obliterate the Iranians' capability to close the straits. It's going to happen. But I would be surprised if they don't take any damage or possibly losses doing it. The mathematics of war are just unfortunately such that, given what they're up against, they will succeed. The question is, what are they going to lose?
And how is that going to play domestically? Because it's already being interesting domestically.
Yeah. God help us if we lose stuff. That's really going to play domestically bad here.
Well, if we lose stuff, then honestly, the government's just signed up to get us up to 5% of defense, 5% of GDP by 2035. And there's a sort of ad hoc codicil that basically primary NATO partners, i.e. Britain, Italy, Germany, and France, are expected to get up there earlier than that. And the fact is, honestly, they'll just have to commission a new class of mine hunters.
That's really not the problem with taking losses, Dr. Clark.
Oh, no, it's just the beginning of the problems, my friend, because we also have to deal with all the other issues from it. But it is going to be one of the interesting impacts.
Hopefully, though, the minesweepers and the mine warfare assets won't go in until the US has thoroughly sanitized the area of stuff like midget subs and cruise missile batteries in the Iranian Air Force. So hopefully the risk of loss to RN assets will be limited to none.
Honestly, the mine warfare boats are some of the premier assets for dealing with those miniature submarines.
Yeah. Gonna be interesting. I'll have to see what happens. But, yeah, so obviously...
although we do have drones out there, but we currently only have one minesweeper because the other Bangor's in Stern Reeford, I think. I think it's Bangor's in Reeford.
Yeah.
And we've got one drone out there, one uncrewed system. We could possibly get another one out there quite quickly. We'd have to airlift it out, but it'll be an interesting policy to do.
I mean, Knight, 5% is achievable right now for all the major NATO countries. There just has to be a commitment to it.
You just have to be prepared to cut other spending.
And Spain has to pull its head from its bum.
Spain isn't included in the 5% shortly.
Yeah,
it's Italy, Britain, Germany, and France.
Spain actually maintains a
Spain's at
reasonable...
1.3%.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that.
Spain's going to have to boost its income, its amount of money up. Yes, but it's just...
It's not about reaching the NATO minimum, is it?
I mean, Spain has always been a periphery part of the alliance. Like, it's always been a capability filler and a rear echelon part of the alliance.
It's always been more something which we have because it's nice to have, not because we necessarily need it.
Yeah, and so no one's really bothered about pushing them up to reach spending targets. Even now, we're expecting them to reach 2% rather than 2.5 or 3. Realistically.
No, they've signed up to it. They've signed up to the same deadline as everyone else.
Yeah, good luck to them.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, it's gonna be an interesting couple of weeks. It's gonna be. Spain does not need a Katabar asset, Akazuki. They don't.
No.
They're looking at abandoning fixed wing capability entirely. And honestly, given the role that they're looking to step into as we move forwards, that may actually be the right decision moving forwards for Spain. Drop the fixed wing capability of your Harriers, move over to having an LHA that's a helicopter asset, and put that funding into either more aircraft for the Air Force or land-based maritime patrol aircraft or, anything else, basically. Navally.
There are lots of other options of what they could do, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, so lots happening. But yeah, so thanks everyone for coming. Lions, can we move to a capability-based budget rather than a percentage-based? No, not really. How would you quantify that?
Because the reason we can't do that is because honestly, people would debate over what's equivalent. And so basically, but the thing is, if you are looking at great defense spending, you're looking at less nicheization. So the forces will not be they will have to be more individually balanced. So you will see the individual forces will grow a lot more, how to put it, self-sufficient. And that's what the Americans really are arguing for. That they've over niched that. And what I find funny about the Americans is basically Europeans did what they asked them to. Yeah. They asked them to fulfill niche capabilities for years and shrink down to it. And now, of course, the Americans have changed their minds and now are going, well, we'd like you to actually be okay, fine.
Okay, we will. No, we want you to spend money with us.
No, because if we're building, this is the other problem for the Americans that they haven't seemed to quite figured out. If we're building our own stuff, or rather, when I say they haven't figured out, a lot of Americans have figured this out, but a lot of the American government doesn't seem to figure that out. That if we start spending this stuff, if the UK government's spending 5% of its GDP on defence, then it's going to be spending a lot of it in the UK. And that's the interesting thing where we start talking about things like, well, what is the eventual replacement for the F-35 on the UK aircraft carriers? It will be. Traditionally, we always thought it would be whatever next generation of F-35 there was. So basically, it would go from the F-35B to probably, let's be honest, the F-35E, because it would probably be DEF would be the next generation of the ABCs, right? So B would go to E. That was the sensible thing. But that's not going to be That might not be the case. If Britain's spending that much on its defence, it might go, well, we've got our own aircraft we've been developing.
Yeah. But yeah, so we will have to... we'll basically have to see what happens, but it's going to be interesting. Take care, everybody.
It's going to be an interesting next 30 years.
Yeah. A couple of wars coming up, I think. But yeah, so take care, everyone. Hope you enjoyed Ramblings this week. There will be a post-Ramblings game night event this week, so please do feel free to stick around for that. As usually is.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Thank you, Foxo. Thank you, Dragon. Thank you, Moe. Thank you, Ruinon. Also, because the bot went weird, we were able to roll back to the old version, which works really well. It puts the questions in automatically, so Ruinon doesn't have to. Makes her workload less. We like that.
What do you mean the bot went weird?
Oh, it for some reason uninstalled itself. So I've reinstalled it, which meant I didn't have to go the...
Okay.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's not. It's just my turn of phrase. Take care, everyone, and I'll catch you all tomorrow for Rule the Waves. And if you are just a YouTube viewer and not a Twitch viewer, You can either catch the VOD of that on YouTube, or you can see me on Friday for